Saudi Arabia is home to some of the strictest laws of any country on earth. Drinking alcohol, partaking in non-traditional sex, or even so much as busting the wrong dance move could get you tortured, imprisoned, or sentenced to death. That is, unless you're one of the elite. You see, Saudi Arabia's richest and most powerful men may obey and uphold Sharia law in public. Behind closed doors, they're funding and participating in some of the most debaucherous parties the world has ever seen, rampant with potent drugs, prostitution, and perverted anal fish fetishes. Meanwhile, these same men weaponize their influence to condemn poorer men with less status, sentencing people to death for a fraction of their own sins. So who are these all-powerful men living above the law and partying in the shadows? Let's start by looking at the tip of the iceberg, the Saudi Arabian royal family, also known as Al Saud. Although the royal family in its entirety is estimated to be made up of 10,000 to 20,000 members, including all descendants of Mohammed bin Saud, the founder of the first Saudi state in 1727, and his brothers, the majority of wealth, power, and influence is held by a smaller group of 2,000 of these men. Some estimates of their wealth measure their net worth at anywhere from as low as $500 billion to as high as $3 trillion, but anyone who's come in contact with members of this group would describe it as seemingly endless. This includes the market cap of the state's oil and gas company, Saudi Aramco, including all of its assets in the country's fossil fuel reserves. This makes the Saudi royal family the current wealthiest family in the world and the wealthiest family ever recorded in history. Now, to take this further, the modern Saudi royal family is primarily led by an even smaller group of descendants of bin Saud, lauded as the founder of Saudi Arabia in its modern form. Upon its conception in 1932, the Saudi Arabian throne was designed to pass from one son to another, and the monarchy remained hereditary until 2006, because in 2006, a royal decree provided that future kings would be elected by a greater committee of Saudi princes. Fast forward to the present day, we see King Salman at the top. King Salman is 87 years old, and it would be kind of far-fetched to imagine a man in his late 80s going on all-night Viagra-fueled benders and hooking up with countless women without having a heart attack. It's likely that King Salman's partying days are in the past. Instead, we need to turn our attention to younger members of the royal family who are making decisions around him, chiefly his son and Saudi's current crowned prince and prime minister, Mohammed bin Salman. Mohammed bin Salman has been nicknamed the party prince by some for a reason, spending a whopping $50 million on just a single behind closed doors party back in 2010, but more on that later in the video. We first have to remember something I mentioned previously, that Prince Mohammed is only one of an estimated 2,000 royals with similar power, wealth, and influence, many of whom are young men with the energy, desire, and power to subvert the famously oppressive Saudi law that their subjects must live by. So when they're being led by the example of the arguably most powerful man in the country, party Prince Mohammed bin Salman, what's stopping them? But again, the Saudi royal family is just the tip of the iceberg here. They're merely hosting these parties, and parties with powerful and wealthy hosts require powerful and wealthy guests. Guests include high-status CEOs and businessmen from the world's largest banks and companies, celebrities, and even various religious leaders from around the world. And although it's difficult to pinpoint who exactly from the tens of thousands of members of the world's elite is attending these Saudi-backed parties, there are plenty of indicators as to who these people are likely to be if we take a closer look at where the Saudi Public Investment Fund has invested the nation's money in recent years. And we will do that right after we examine some of the most arguably insane things that allegedly happen at these underground events. And we'll start with the most notorious report, which surfaced just a few years ago. In 2015, 150 beautiful Brazilian and Russian models were flown private to the remote island, Vila in the Maldives, to meet just a few dozen unnamed wealthy men from the Middle East who had the entire island to themselves. Vila can only be described as one of the most luxurious and expensive destinations in the world, complete with 4 dozen private villas overlooking the Indian Ocean, each with private decks, swimming pools, and their own staff, and the party's host spared no expense. He even made sure there was a snow machine in case guests wanted to experience an artificial blizzard on the beach. And you might say this was a party fit for a prince, and that's because it was exactly that. The mysterious host of this exclusive event was none other than Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the current crowned prince and prime minister of Saudi Arabia, which is why he's aptly nicknamed the party prince. And when I mentioned that he spared no expense, it truly meant it, as it's estimated that Prince Mohammed bin Salman allocated a staggering $50 million to ensure the continuation of this extravagant affair. Each night, the festivities would carry on until the break of dawn, with Saudi Arabia's most influential Muslim men engaging in excessive consumption of alcohol, drugs, and extramarital affairs without protection. Prince Mohammed bin Salman is not oblivious to the potential consequences here. He was well aware that if Saudi newspapers were to uncover the truth about the events taking place in the Maldives, it would be a disaster of epic proportions. The revelation of his indulgent debauchery and extravagant spending would undoubtedly incite a revolt among Saudi Arabia's young population, who are already extremely frustrated by the limitations imposed on their personal freedoms by both law and religion. And so to prevent this, he implemented a ban on smartphones on the island, and generously rewarded all staff members with a bonus equivalent to 5 months' salary. ensuring the secrets will remain confined to the island. However, this was not the only instance in which Prince Mohammed bin Salman hosted opulent parties that showcased the luxuries forbidden to his subjects. Shortly after he acquired the Serene, an impressive 439-foot super yacht for a staggering $500 million. This extravagant vessel boasted 2 helipads, a submarine dock, an underwater viewing room, a jacuzzi, a movie theater, and a grand piano overlooking a beautiful spiral staircase. It provided the perfect setting for exclusive gatherings with close friends from the elite circle, as well as numerous beautiful models and high-priced escorts. Furthermore, for occasion when he decided to bring the festivities to solid ground, the prince's team also acquired a French chateau near Versailles worth $300 million. This lavish property served as an additional venue for his extravagant parties, further highlighting this huge contrast between the luxuries enjoyed by the elite of Saudi Arabia and the extreme restrictions imposed on the general population, where there is no freedom, no luxury, no opulence. But despite the well-known scandals involving Mohammed bin Salman, there are a few more shocking tales of immorality within Saudi elite. In 2018, disturbing accounts emerged from various hotels in Bahrain, Paris, and London. Anonymous hotel staff reported that members of the Saudi Arabian ruling class would host wild orgies in the most luxurious private suites, resulting in extensive damage and exorbitant cleanup fees, sometimes reaching up to $200,000 in cleanup charges. For wealthy Saudis, money, it seems, is never an issue. It's just an inconvenience and the sheer depravity of the Saudi elites that prompts complaints from hotel managers. One hotel employee who chose to remain anonymous described walking into a room completely covered in human feces. Another shocking anecdote came from another former sex worker who shared her experiences on Instagram. She revealed that she was trafficked and paid millions by individuals associated with the Al Saud family to fulfill their most repulsive fetishes and fantasies, which included engaging in sexual acts with dogs, consuming feces, and even using live salmon for perverse purposes. And over the years, numerous stories have emerged about secret elite swinger parties, prostitutes surrounded by piles of cash, excessive alcohol and drug use, and even a lawsuit involving Saudi Prince Abdulaziz. It was alleged that he forced American staff to witness his sexual encounters with another man and engaged in unusual fetishes involving flatulence in a mansion in Beverly Hills, something that would get you stoned to death if you were poor in Saudi Arabia. But if you're an elite, it's a whole other story. And although the prince managed to evade charges, it is difficult to imagine a scenario where criminal allegations persist when you're the nephew of King Salman and the cousin of Saudi Arabia's crown prince, Mohammed, known for his lavish parties. In 2010, however, Prince Saud bin Abdulaziz bin Nasser Al Saud, a member of the Saudi royal family, was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of his manservant. The victim was then found dead in his bed at a luxurious hotel in London, with signs of severe beating. During the trial, the defendant focused on disproving claims of homosexuality, as this is considered a mortal sin in Saudi Arabia. The prince had desperately attempted to conceal his sexual orientation before the trial commenced at the Old Bailey. The prince's legal team said that if he was outed as a homosexual, he would face execution in his homeland. In March 2013, he was then allowed to return to Saudi Arabia to serve the remainder of his term in a Saudi prison. According to the agreement between the UK and Saudi Arabia, he must serve at least 20 years behind bars before he can be released. But in recent years, stories of these crazy, wild parties and homoerotic encounters and crimes of perverse passion have become less frequent, perhaps due to the family's desire for privacy. It seems they now prefer Prince Mohammed's exclusive and opulent island and yacht parties over visits to cities like LA, London, or Paris. Since the previous reports in 2015, MBS has been running a tight ship, doing his very best to hide the details of his various escapades. However, no matter how rich he happened to be, the truth almost always reveals itself. That begs the question, who actually is MBS, and how did he get to this point? Well, as a child, MBS, the 8th child of King Salman, and the first child of his mother, who was the king's 3rd wife, had a fondness for scuba diving, fast food, and video games, particularly the Age of Empires series. In contrast to some of his siblings, MBS did not travel abroad to England or France for his education. Instead, he always remained in Saudi Arabia, which allowed him to gain a deep understanding of the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of his rivals within the royal family. From an early age, he was obsessed with 2 things: money and power. By the age of 16, he had already accumulated a fortune of around $100,000 by selling the gold coins and luxury watches gifted to him by his wealthy relatives. He then ventured into the stock market and started trading regularly. Later on, he established his own companies, including a waste management business and a group of real estate firms. From an early age, he was known to be ruthless, as evidenced by a popular story where he sent a bullet to a land official who refused to grant him the title to a property he demanded, earning him the moniker Father of the Bullet. He also benefited from his connections with the government, as he and other members of the royal family were implicated in insider trading after regulations discovered that they were investing heavily in companies just before the significant announcements. As the years passed, and as he became more powerful, MBS morphed into a truly murderous being, developing a taste for blood and revenge. And when the 38-year-old wasn't organizing and participating in wild sex-fueled parties full of prostitutes and cocaine, he can be found found organizing the execution of family members and innocent journalists. In 2021, following an explosive episode of 60 Minutes, Democracy for the Arab World Now called for immediate international action to sanction Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The revelations exposed MBS's alleged plots to murder his uncle, then King Abdullah Al Saud, and Saudi exile Saadi Al Jabri. The interview conducted by 60 Minutes with a former senior Saudi intelligence officer offered a detailed depiction of MBS, shedding light on his disturbing and unlawful behavior. The segment presented compelling evidence suggesting that MBS orchestrated a plot to assassinate his uncle with the assistance of Russian agents who provided a lethal poison.
And he told him,
Alright,
I want
hopefully
to
Blue doesn't
assassinate
take
King
him out.
Abdullah. I got a poison drink from Russia. It's enough for me just to shake hand with him.
The plot was, however, unsuccessful, although a previous plot to assassinate a famous journalist did go as planned. In October of 2018, Jamal, a US-based journalist and critic of the Saudi Arabian government, entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, and he never re-emerged. In the subsequent months following his brutal murder, which involved being dismembered with a binesaw, there were many different accounts regarding the circumstances of his death, the fate of his body, and the individuals accountable for this heinous act. According to Saudi officials, Jamal, who was born in Saudi, was killed during an unauthorized mission carried out by a group of agents who were attempting to convince him to come back to the kingdom.
There was no authorization for them to commit this crime, that's why it's a rogue operation.
Conversely, Turkish officials asserted that these agents were acting under direct orders from the highest echelons of the Saudi government. In November of 2018, the CIA concluded that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had ordered Jamal's assassination based on intercepted communication suggesting that MBS had given direct orders to lure the journalist into the embassy.
A US intelligence report has concluded that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman personally approved the murder of the exiled journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. He was killed while visiting the Saudi consulate in the Turkish city of Istanbul. The declassified report says the prince approved a plan to either capture or kill Khashoggi, who had criticized the Saudi regime.
And despite the fact that the murder of this journalist is the sole recorded occurrence in recent times, it doesn't really provide any accurate representation of the magnitude of offenses committed against journalists within and beyond Saudi Arabia. Over the last 10 years, numerous journalists have been apprehended, confined, and tried for their journalistic endeavors. Presently, there are at least 25 journalists, both Saudi and non-Saudi, who remain incarcerated in Saudi Arabia, which is kind of ironic considering that Saudi Arabia now seems to be at the forefront of journalism, owning the most edgy and supposedly informative media sites like Vice. You see, a decade ago, Vice documentaries debuted on HBO. Led by Shane Smith, Vice dedicated itself to extensively documenting the abuses of dictatorial regimes. However, in recent times, particularly after the company's near collapse, it is actively engaged in the removal of content. In June, for example, Vice uploaded a documentary titled Inside Saudi Crown Prince's Ruthless Quest for Power, which critically examined the notorious dictator Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, also known as MBS. Interestingly though, the video was swiftly taken down from the Vice News YouTube channel just 4 days after its release, despite accumulating over 750,000 views. An initial report by The Guardian revealed that a film from Vice's investigative series focusing on Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was taken down from the internet after being uploaded. Vice's description of the video, which is also no longer available on YouTube, previously highlighted the Crown Prince's involvement in various controversial actions, including orchestrating the Ritz Purge, kidnapping Saudi elites and royal relatives under allegations of torture, and his associates being linked to the brutal hacking of journalist Jamal. Earlier this year, The Guardian also revealed that Vice has received millions of dollars from the Saudi regime. So not surprisingly, in recent years, Vice's coverage of Saudi Arabia has undergone a shift, which appears to be linked to the growth of its commercial relationship with the kingdom. This relationship is said to have started in 2017, when Khalid bin Salman, the younger brother of MBS, introduced Vice co-founder Shane Smith to MBS, who reportedly became infatuated with the brand. By the end of 2018, Vice had produced promotional videos for Saudi Arabia in collaboration with the Saudi Research and Media Group. In 2020, Vice even helped organize a Saudi music festival, subsidized by the Saudi government. But its name was not listed on publicity materials for the event. But then Vice has since opened an office in the capital of Saudi Arabia and is actively recruiting for several positions. A Vice spokesperson has stated that the company's editorial voice remains independent, and the removal of a film was due to the concerns about the safety of Saudi-based staff. In 2023, Vice then announced a deal with the Saudi media company NBC. According to a recent report by The Interpreter, a map of Saudi Arabia hangs on the wall of Vice's London office now, which may answer the question of why we don't hear more about the sick, depraved acts of MBS. But it isn't just his control of journalists and the media. because he has enlisted the services of top PR gurus, the type of people who can make a potential psychopath look like a respectable, even commendable human being. To be specific, MBS has enlisted the services of Elderman, an American public relations and marketing consultancy firm headquartered in Chicago. Valued at $1 billion, the firm is run by Chicago native Richard Elderman, and his company has primarily been focused on restoring the reputation of the Saudi regime in the United States, a task that was initiated a few years ago. In February 2020, Elderman registered as a foreign agent representing the Saudi Basic Industries Corporation, a government majority-owned chemicals manufacturer, to promote the Business 20 gathering of executives held in Riyadh that year. The objective of this work was to target American audiences and was expected to earn Elderman more than $5.6 million in fees. It involved the regular distribution of press releases highlighting achievements such as the advancement of women in business and efforts to empower women and youth. One of these releases featured a quote from Princess Rima bint Bandar Al Saud, the Saudi ambassador to the United States, praising the B20 Saudi Arabia's commitment to women's empowerment and an inclusive policy development process that she hoped would leave a lasting legacy under the Saudi presidency. However, at the exact same time, the Saudi government was sentencing Noura bin Saeed Al Qahtani to a staggering 45 years in prison for expressing her opinions on social media. This verdict was delivered shortly after Sama Al-Shahab, a student from Leeds University in the UK, was sentenced to 34 years in prison for retweeting the views of activists who were critical of the country. Elderman has, in recent years, entered into contracts worth at least $9.6 million with Saudi Arabia, arguably the world's wealthiest autocracy. On its website, Elderman claims to have a very strong commitment to LGBTQ+ rights, yet at the same time continues to do business with a country where homosexuals are lashed on the streets. In fact, Freedom House calls Saudi Arabia one of the most oppressive nations in terms of human rights and civil and political liberties. And these criticisms are warranted. The Saudi government severely restricts political rights and civil liberties, and engages in arbitrary imprisonment, torture, and execution of individuals perceived as opponents. Elderman has also agreed to provide strategic counsel, media relations, stakeholder identification, and engagement, as well as other branding and promotional work in the United States for NEOM, a new $500 billion city in northwestern Saudi Arabia. You see, NEOM is a key priority for Prince Mohammed, who chairs its board of directors. According to Elderman's foreign agent filings, the firm is projected to earn over $3 million from its work with NEOM by the time it's completed. Notably, NEOM is being developed by the country's $620 billion sovereign wealth fund, otherwise known as the Public Investment Fund. Elderman, one assumes, realizes that it has blood on its hands, as the development of NEOM, the innovative, environmentally friendly city in Saudi Arabia, necessitates the relocation of indigenous communities. Those who fail to adhere to the proposed plans face severe penalties, including lengthy prison sentences and even death. Earlier this year, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights released a report highlighting the displacement and
Bro, this is sick.
belonging to tribes in the designated area for the city. Shockingly or not, these actions were carried out without providing adequate compensation to the affected individuals.
I can't believe
Furthermore,
that they're
the
letting
report
me do
reveals that
this
one
right
member of
now.
The tribe was killed, while 3 others were sentenced to death. An additional 3 members received 50-year prison terms on terrorism charges. According to the report, these individuals were arrested under the pretext of terrorism, but it is believed that their actual offense was just resisting the forced evictions associated with the controversial project. And with an estimated cost, they're doing this because NEOM is a significant component of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 initiative, introduced by MBS in 2017. This comprehensive set of reforms promises to enhance and promote tourism, diversify the kingdom's economy by creating alternative sources of income, and, rather laughably, promote women's rights. Projected to open in 2039, NEOM is set to occupy a vast area of 26,500 square kilometers in Saudi Arabia, right next to the Red Sea coast. The project is fully owned by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, one of the most powerful sovereign wealth funds on the planet. The PIF's reach is absolutely staggering. It is quite possibly the most powerful fund in the world, and its role in helping Saudis to essentially control the global narrative is particularly disturbing. The PIF holds a 38% stake in POSCO Engineering and Construction Co., a 5% stake in Uber worth $3.5 billion, and a 5% stake in video game companies Capcom and Nexon worth $1 billion. In March 2016, it was announced that the ownership of Saudi Aramco, a state-owned petroleum and natural gas company, would be transferred to the PIF. PIF holds a 5.7% stake valued at $500 million in concert distributor Live Nation, but more in concerts in a minute. In 2020, PIF acquired minority stakes in major US companies such as Boeing, Meta Platforms, and Citigroup. It also disclosed significant stakes in Disney and Bank of America, as well as a smaller stake in Berkshire Hathaway. PIF also disclosed a stake of $827.7 million in oil company BP. In the same year, PIF also plays a key role in Saudi Arabia's worldwide sport washing. Now, as you may have seen, it seems like Saudi Arabia is everywhere in the world of sports. In October 2021, it was announced that the Public Investment Fund would acquire Newcastle United, a huge soccer team based in the UK. Following the Premier League's receipt of legally binding assurances that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia would not have control over the club. Such assurances were, and still are, really laughable, as the PIF's chairman is none other than the omnipotent MBS. Although Amnesty International raised concerns about Saudi Arabia's horrendous human rights record and called for the introduction of standards that would prevent human rights violators from owning Premier League clubs, the takeover was very successful. The PIF also owns the Saudi Pro League, the Kingdom's answer to the English Premier League. And that's why in 2022, you started seeing people like Cristiano Ronaldo joining a Saudi Arabian team on a 2.5-year deal, reportedly worth more than 220 million euros. Not to mention Neymar and using Messi as the ambassador, they're putting all the money into control football.
Bro,
but it's not
this
just
is
football,
ridiculous.
it's everything. They've also infiltrated the world of golf. In October 2021, Golf Saudi, a division of the PIF, provided funding
He's
for the
gonna
establishment
attack
of
there.
LIV Golf Investments, appointing Greg Norman, an Australian entrepreneur and retired professional golfer, as its
Yeah, I
CEO.
knew it.
And that's when they would create a professional
fine
tour
with
known
that.
as LIV Golf, previously referred to as the Super Golf League, becoming a huge competitor to the PGA Tour, offering the most lucrative golf tournaments in history and successfully persuading all the top players to participate. Almost all the top golfers joined, for hundreds of millions of dollars. But some notable players did actually decline the opportunity to join the new league, with Tiger Woods rejecting an offer nearly worth $1 billion. Rory McIlroy, a vocal critic of the tournament, aligned himself with the PGA Tour, criticizing all the players who joined LIV Golf as just being another pawn of Saudi Arabia. And now the PIF is also trying to take over tennis, acquiring a stake in the United Cup, a mixed national team tournament organised by Tennis Australia, which is now working on moving the Joint Association of Tennis Professionals and the Women's Tennis Association event to Saudi Arabia. Earlier this year, reports started to emerge about WWE, the world's largest professional wrestling company, being sold to the PIF, with the WWE having a strategic partnership with Saudi's Ministry of Sport. That's why all the time now you see WWE having these huge large-scale events in Saudi Arabia annually. And not content with wrestling, soccer, golf, and tennis, Saudi Arabia also has its sights on the world of esports, a rapidly growing industry that's predicted to reach a value of $1.64 billion by next year. MBS recently unveiled plans for the annual Esports World Cup to take place in Riyadh. Commencing in the summer of 2024, this major event will showcase tournaments encompassing a wide range of popular esport titles from various genres. While the exact prize pool remains undisclosed, it is anticipated to be the most substantial in the history of esports. But MBS also has realized the best way to control the hearts of the new generation is to control influencers. As we've shown before, Saudi's neighbor, the United Arab Emirates, uses social media influencers to sell a particularly favorable image of Dubai, and Saudi does something similar. In recent years, in a desperate attempt to promote a fresh perspective on the country, Saudi Arabia has collaborated with Gateway KSA, a non-governmental organization specializing in cultural exchanges. According to reports, an executive member of Gateway KSA, who plays a huge role in the initiative, is Prince Turki Al Faisal Al Saud. As part of their efforts, social media influencers are invited to the country on fully funded and supervised trips. During their visit, these influencers are treated to luxurious experiences, including
man.
helicopter
This
rides,
was an
scuba
easy
diving
win.
in the Red Sea, and accommodations in the most prestigious hotels. They also take
Easy
them to explore
win.
an ancient unfinished tomb in the Al Lula Desert. In return, influencers are then expected to share overwhelmingly positive posts about their experiences in the kingdom. And rather conveniently, social media posts that are carefully selected and shared do not make any reference to the human rights violations that occur in Saudi Arabia, such as the brutal acts of beheading and crucifixion. Yes, crucifixions.
mentions in its report that 81 people were executed in Saudi Arabia in a single day last year.
Not only is the Saudi regime beheading people in the streets, they're crucifying them.
Ali Al-Nimr was just 17 when he was arrested and then sentenced to crucifixion for protesting during the Arab Spring demonstrations in Saudi Arabia. His case
Thanks
has
for
sparked
feeding me the
global
kill.
outrage amongst human rights groups, celebrities, and the UK's Prime Minister, David
And
Cameron.
the win.
He is about to be crucified and beheaded by the Saudi government. What's your message to them about that?
Don't do it. We don't agree with the way that they go about these things.
That's why suddenly you see all these influencers online in Saudi Arabia. The Logan Pauls of the world are all there, all becoming part of the spectacle. But deep down, this is all just a way to control public image for Saudi Arabia, to keep their dirty secrets hidden. And it's not just social media influencers, it's prominent musicians, like Metallica, one of America's biggest metal bands. You see, the band announced that it will make its first ever appearance in Saudi Arabia this December. The renowned rockers will take the stage as the headliners for the opening night of the 3-day Soundstorm Festival in Riyadh on December 14th. In addition to Metallica, a band that supposedly cares about human rights abuses, pop star and celebrated activist Pharrell Williams and disgraced rapper Chris Brown will also perform in Saudi. The Soundstorm Festival is considered Saudi Arabia's equivalent to the UK's Glastonbury Festival, and last year it attracted a whopping 600,000 people last year. And the amount of high-profile artists willing to perform in a country known for the most atrocious human rights violations imaginable is absolutely staggering. Last year, Bruno Mars, Post Malone, DJ Khaled, and several other well-renowned artists from North America and Europe all graced the stage at Soundstorm in Riyadh. And to her credit, Nicki Minaj, who's not necessarily renowned for her moral compass, actually withdrew from the Jeddah World Fest in 2019, expressing her concerns about the country's treatment of women and LGBTQ rights. And the fiancé of Jamal, the journalist who was brutally murdered and dismembered in the Saudi consulate after criticizing Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, penned an open ed in the Washington Post in November 2021, urging Justin Bieber to cancel his performance at the Formula One Grand Prix in Jeddah in the following month. But yet, despite the pleas to have some normalcy, Bieber's concert went on as planned, with Jason Derulo and A$AP Rocky also taking the stage that day. Because this is the power of Saudi Arabia. Despite murdering journalists, crucifying innocent people in the streets, the kingdom continues to become one of the most powerful countries in the world, all aided by the influencers, the powerful sports organizations, and the media companies like Vice. And now seemingly the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, who earlier this year took away his promise to take action against MBS and other Saudi officials, which meant Saudi Arabia will never have to face any real consequences for their actions, and will undoubtedly become more and more influential as the years go by. The country may or may not go green, but the streets will likely continue to run red with the color of blood. However, with the help of shameless PR executives in the US, expect such stories either to be suppressed or altered to fit Mohammed bin Salman's nefarious agenda. From streamers gambling their life savings away to deliberately shitting themselves on stream and crashing their cars for views, these are the idiotic streamers who ruin their lives for views, beginning with Zilean OP. Zilean OP was one of the fastest growing Twitch streamers back in 2012, streaming games every day. He gained popularity by portraying himself as a disabled individual. His streams tugged at his viewers' heartstrings,
so he isn't
disabled,
condition. But he acted like it?
My whole stream knew that I was going through physical therapy. No one knew the extent of my recovery. I was in a wheelchair for 2 years. I was in a car accident.
Okay.
Which put me in a wheelchair.
Viewers rallied, even contributing funds for a new wheelchair and a heartwarming.
Oh, so he was, but then he knew.
However, the narrative took an unexpected turn when, during a live stream, Zilean OP shockingly stood up and walked off screen, shattering the illusion. The revelation left his audience in disbelief, realizing the disability they had empathized with was a charade. Following the exposure, Zilean OP disappeared from the internet. His Twitch account was removed, and while many called him out, more people just saw this as an absolute joke. These things happen, guys. Sometimes you forget to be disabled. It happens to the best of us. And although he would come back a few years later to admit the deception,
and I think
I should have been open about the recovery from day one. My wheelchair is part of my stream, and it's something where people see me do wheelies and something people see me stuck in. I should 100% have been like, hey guys, today at physical therapy, I walked 2 steps.
The damage was irreversible. The streamer's attempt to explain himself fell on deaf.
You'd think you would have told that, like, that would have been exciting for you, so you would have told your stream. But he must have thought that he was getting the audience because he was disabled.
The reality is that Zilean OP's saga serves as a glaring example of the intense pressures and incentives that drive streamers to push the boundaries of sanity for views. In his case, the idea of an ever-growing audience that loved him because he was in a wheelchair meant he had to keep that persona on. He felt his online persona was identified by his disability, and so he pretty much mocked the truly disabled and pretended to need something millions wish they could escape from, all for a couple of views. This demand for attention by creating illusions for content becomes a dangerous cycle and says a lot about humanity. But that was nothing compared to the next person on our list. You see, as streamers witness the success of their peers in capturing viral moments, they feel compelled to outdo one another. This race for the craziest stunts can inadvertently lead to the normalization of extreme behavior. For instance, popular streamers like XQC and Drake the rapper have gone live on Twitch as they gamble millions of dollars.
Good fucking win.
2.4 mil! Boom!
Retrig one more time. Oh my. Oh,
You,
wow.
sir. Look at that screen.
Jesus Christ.
I'm not gonna click it, man.
Okay,
Okay.
But I mean, Drake has enough money, and so does XQC, so it's not really that bad of a. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Often tipping viewers in the chat along the way.
Steve
With
will
some
do it
streamers going
also.
so extreme that they lose millions online for their audience, like Trainwrecks TV, who lost over $10 million in one stream. But one gambling streamer
Damn.
that stands above them all
But how much money does he have if he's able to lose $10 million in one stream? That's fucking crazy.
is Austin07, otherwise known as Bossman Jack. He started streaming back in 2019, and his channel gained popularity with the boost of the streaming server's Kick. Unfortunately, Austin is a chronic gambling addict who has slowly gambled his life away in front of his viewers. Even worse is that quite often he'd do it with other people's money.
Dude, somebody please help me, bro. Dude, somebody please can help me, bro. I know one of y'all can help me, bro.
If we go back to 2014, Austin found himself entangled in a criminal case that almost resulted in a felony. According to the arrest report, on August 30th, 2014, Austin, along with 2 accomplices, broke into cars in the Berkshire area of New Kent, Virginia. The trio made off with coins, credit cards, and various items. The charges include grand larceny, credit card theft, tampering with a vehicle, and petty larceny. In 2015, Austin pleaded guilty to the lesser charges and agreed to pay restitution, leading to the dropping of the felony grand larceny charge. This was prior to his gambling addiction, but it showed a bit of who he would become. By 2020, Austin was known as a debt streamer, borrowing gold from his audience and losing it in gambling duels.
Oh my fucking god, dude! What the fuck is this?
This risky behavior, a form of light gambling, became a staple of his streams, but things would take a much darker turn in 2022. During the Twitch gambling boom, Austin07
Alright.
transitioned to real-life money gambling. Clips surfaced of him winning big, but the streak was short-lived. In true gambling fashion, he found himself losing significant amounts, leading to meltdowns that showcased this intense frustration and self-loathing.
I just lost everything. Have a good day, everybody. Wow. I cannot fucking believe that. Wow.
I mean, that might just be that he's a gambling addict, though. It might not even have to do anything with streaming.
At the same time, he was also known for being a coke addict and using other drugs. And as the drugs made his behavior
Huh.
more unpredictable, the same couldn't be said for his streams. Every time it was the same thing. Short-lived sessions, losing everything, emotional breakdowns, and the cycle repeating. His desperate pleas for financial help from his audience became a recurring theme.
Somebody help me, man. Please. Please, guys. Somebody please help me.
I have a surprise for you. Get in.
Poor Things is nominated for 7 Golden Globe Awards and 13 Critics' Choice Awards.
It is most charming.
Dude, I know there's one person out of 93 viewers that can help me, man. Please. Please, dude. Please, guys. Please,
Ah,
please,
sick.
please, man. Please.
Highlighting the destructive nature of his gambling addiction. He was putting himself into heavy debt and letting his viewers watch him do it. While you may say it was gambling that was his issue, Austin clearly loved getting the attention along with his downfall. Something was clear though, and that's that his viewers were only enticed and more excited for his freakout moments as he lost everything, which once again points to what people would do for views, but also reveals a greater problem. The spotlight shifts to the audience appetite for the sensational and the tragic. Austin's viewers were not just passive observers, they actively participated in the cycle of his highs and lows. The more he struggled, the more attention he received, creating a perverse incentive for the streamer and his destructive behavior, which casts a shadow on a much broader issue with online content consumption. It raises ethical concerns about the glorification of personal struggles and the intersection of entertainment with genuine human suffering. The fact that viewers find excitement and entertainment in someone's lowest moments reflects a very dystopian part of internet culture. But before we continue, I want to tell you about our video sponsor, Raycons. I've been using the Raycon everyday earbuds for a while now, and they've been perfect for any time I take a hike or go to the gym. Not only do they fit my ear perfectly, but the sound quality just blows me away. And because they're also noise isolating, it means I can really immerse myself in what I'm listening to without any distractions. Now for those who don't know, Raycon made a name for themselves with their premium audio on their products like the classic everyday earbuds and everyday headphones, which provided premium products at a great price in addition to easy and free returns, free shipping, and buy in now and pay later options, earning them tens of thousands dozens of 5-star reviews. And now they've just released their new line of Raycon Home and Raycon Power Tech products, such as their Magic 180 charging cable that charges iOS, micro USB, and Type-C devices, all with a simple magnetic tip switch. In addition to the innovative 4-set filter. Luckily for you, Raycon has Black Friday and Cyber Monday promotions across their entire site, with select products up to 50% off. And you can save even more because Raycon is also offering limited time bundles, like with their Tech Kit bundle options with the Fitness Audio Kit and the Everyday Audio Kit. But now they've also got a build your own tech kit, which is new this year, where Raycon allows you to mix and match 3+ Raycon products and colors. And to be clear, these are Raycon's biggest holiday discounts ever, and they're only available for 1 week, so make sure to shop by November 27th. And check out Raycon's Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales for their biggest holiday discounts yet. Go to buyraycon.com/MoonYT to get up to 50% off site-wide. In the world of streaming, where personalities like Zillion OP and Austin07 have shown how people will do anything for viewer engagement and personal image, it does beg the question, how do the top streamers manage this whole thing? For example, people like Pokimane, who's one of the biggest streamers on the site and has one of the most squeaky clean images. She seems to have managed the streaming business perfectly, so much so that recently she created her own snack company, Mina, which initially appeared as a promising way for her to monetize the audience. Her Midnight Mini Cookies, marketed as a healthier snack option, marked her entry into a new commercial territory. Following the success of Prime, Feastables, and all the other influencer products, it seemed like the perfect match for her, as she would be able to extend her influence beyond gaming and lifestyle content. However, as soon as Mina was launched, it quickly spiraled into controversy. The cookies, priced at $28 for 4 packs, faced immediate criticism for their high cost and questionable health claims, particularly regarding the added vitamin D, as the whole situation around her business echoed the deceptive practices often seen in the streaming world.
Now this is where I get a little bit upset. I'm gonna be honest with you. 3 micrograms of vitamin D, and then using 3 micrograms to say you have vitamin D in your branding. So 3 micrograms of vitamin D is not a lot of vitamin D. That's 120 IUs of vitamin D. The average adult needs about 600 IUs of vitamin D a day to maintain their balance. This is dietary allowance. This is not going out in the sun. This is a basis of information that has led to most of the population being insufficient in vitamin D.
But the reality behind the screen can be at odds with the public persona, but this sort of criticism about pricing is always going to be there. However, the backlash would receive a fever pitch when Pokimane responded to the criticism on social media. In a series of completely idiotic and moronic tweets, she defended the pricing of her cookies, suggesting that the product was aimed at a specific marketing segment and implied that those who found it expensive were not the target audience, seemingly alienating those who just couldn't afford their own products.
When people are like, oh my god, $28 for cookies?
Ha! What a bitch.
4 bags. That's $7 a bag. I know math is hard when you're an idiot, but if you're a broke boy, just say so.
Seemed to push away a portion of her fanbase who felt that she was being insensitive to differing economic realities. Quickly, people like Moist Critical would make videos on her, which gained over 4 million views in 24 hours.
Damn.
Many of her own fans expressed disappointment and frustration about this whole situation, feeling that her condescending, tone-deaf response was indicative of a growing gap between her
It's
and
a
her
bot.
audience, the rich and the poor. And the
No.
We're searching for soldiers for a fight against the Mother World.
A revolution with this handful.
The sentiment was echoed across all social media platforms, once again highlighting how detached these influencers are from reality, showing that these people don't see their viewers as actual people, but as a commodity to distribute and cut up for a profit. Just a little number on a screen. We can see this common attitude with the top influencers, people like Charlie D'Amelio, who fake to be real people in supermarkets to make their audience think that they're relatable somehow, whilst in reality, just showing how deluded these people truly are. But aside from streamers ruining their image or behind a series of condescending tweets, streamers have also pushed their limits and done their best to blur the lines of what is okay and not okay to do on those streams. But aside from a person ruining their life behind a camera, streamers have also pushed their limits and done their best to blur the lines of what's okay and what's not okay to do on these streams. One particular issue that's popped up over the years on Twitch specifically is the idea of Twitch thoughts. The Urban Dictionary defines Twitch thought as a girl that is using Twitch TV as a nearby adult entertainment website to get donations from young boys. The girl is fully aware of what she's doing, but if someone calls her out, she's always going to defend herself by saying that someone is sexist. sexist. Now, there's some major debate surrounding Twitch thoughts, and whether the gaming community is being sexist or if certain female streamers are indeed pushing the boundaries with their content. Some argue that a growing market on Twitch involves female streamers not primarily focused on gaming, but on luring in viewers with overly sexual behavior, relying on donations and subscriptions with minimal gaming-related content. While wearing very revealing clothing, they do certain things to entice the audience even more, like stretching, bending over to adjust the webcam, twerking, and engaging in various poses with a focus on cleavage and buttocks. But part of the issue is that Twitch seems to have a double standard. Male streamers who sarcastically...
Well, now they have it so that these chicks are just sitting there fucking with their tits out.
enact similar poses often face some hefty consequences. With a major uproar from the Twitch community, they have changed some guidelines on what is allowed. One streamer who consistently takes this to the next level is Alanizzi, who has done multiple questionable things for the views and donations over the years.
I don't know who this
is. A
is.
prominent Canadian Twitch streamer known for her content primarily centered around gaming and lifestyle. She has over 1.4 million followers on Twitch, and for most of her streams, she'll be playing some popular game. However, her time as a streamer has been littered with controversies, from copy striking PewDiePie's YouTube channel to being toxic towards her fanbase and those who don't like her. Yet some things she's done on stream have been far more extreme than others. Going back to 2020, in the middle of one of her streams, Alanizzi had a wardrobe malfunction. She was placing a pillow under her shirt and revealed her entire left boob, something that has caused permabans before, and yet Twitch initially ignored the situation.
Yeah, some guys like literally showed their underwear, and
only after
there
many
you got
asked for her to be
banned.
banned, she would only receive a one-day ban. This moment only gave Alanizzi more attention, and her sub count went up once she started streaming again. The audience wanted more. Controversial actions often attract attention, as people are more likely to share and discuss content that elicits strong emotions. Other things she's done on stream aside from her overly sexualized behaviors is abuse her cats repeatedly on stream. See, Alanizzi thought it would be funny
okay, that's the chick. That's kind of what I thought. Damn it.
to give her cat vodka in front of her audience so they can see the cat's reaction. Perhaps it was ignorance, but cats can't really tolerate ingesting alcohol and can easily be poisoned by it. This was one of multiple occasions where she would abuse her cat on stream. She always thought it was funny and that her audience would love it, though after some backlash, we don't see cats in her room in her streams anymore. But one thing this made clear is that she would do anything to get more views, as just a few months ago, she was banned again for twerking on stream. And this degenerate behavior is how she grabs her audience attention. Her entire job is based on being a complete degenerate piece of filth. But at least the audience in this case has the decision to watch it, something this next streamer doesn't do. And her name is Bad Bunny. You see, these streamers will go to extremes just to get more views. And it's about more than just people watching. For some, it's really about feeling like you're worth something, as they feel their value lies behind those who watch them. And so they will do anything, even evil things, just to get more views. But more often than not, the issue is usually greed. Likes, subscribers, and views come with a natural value. And the behaviors of certain streamers who resort to extreme tactics always want to boost their viewership so that they can get more donations, sponsors, ad revenue, and anything to drop a couple more pennies in their pockets. And Bad Bunny did this to the extreme. Now, Bad Bunny has done many things that have gotten her in trouble over the years. She started her Twitch career dressing provocatively on stream to grow her audience, and was temporarily banned for mistakenly exposing herself at one point. But she's also slowly turned into an extreme leftist streamer who ran a political talk show with the hopes of trying to start her own version of the Ben Shapiro show on the other side of the political spectrum. Her typical stream is breaking down political situations, and because of her extreme stances on certain issues, she's been banned on Twitch again for saying some deemed hateful things. On the surface, Bad Bunny is just standing up for what she believes in, and if you take a look at her socials and most of her streams, she's been a major advocate for anything that gives her virtue signaling points. Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ stuff, anything. The list goes on. And while she did manage to grab a solid audience from doing this, she was very frustrated that none of them was subbing to her channel or making any donations.
Please give me fucking money. Like, I get that people have financial issues,
Oh, is this that chick?
but like, I don't believe that half of my fucking viewership is all suffering from crippling financial issues while also having hours upon hours every single day of time that they can spend watching Twitch.
In fact, Bad Bunny straight up called her audience poor and even banned one of her viewers who called her out on her verbal abuse and expectations.
Think this guy is worried about malware? Don't bet on it. Whether it's malicious software such as ransomware or other unauthorized software.
Speech about how I need subs to keep the stream going if you like the content, blah, blah, blah. How that results in 0 subs. There are regulars here. $5 a month. How do you have hours of time to watch me and not $5?
I did see this. This is fucking stupid.
With your life, where you have hours of time to watch Twitch
What are you doing with your life? Begging people to give you money.
and not $5 to provide for the content that you're watching. Because it's like people just really really don't respect me as a content creator.
So much for being left.
No, you probably shouldn't be respected.
Wait, the situation then caught wind and escalated with YouTubers like Moist Critical exposing Bad Bunny's greedy tactics, as she was given the title the greediest streamer on Twitch, an ironic title for an extreme leftist political talk show host. And after some digging, she was also dubbed the most hypocritical Twitch streamer because she wouldn't practice what she preached. Not only would she make homophobic comments in her private chats, she also used the N-word and call a gay black person gross.
Even black people, if you found me a black bisexual man, I might throw up in my mouth.
It's clear that she was only ever streaming as a way to make money off of her viewers and nothing else. She's not the only streamer to go on a run.
A black homosexual. Sounds based,
because
honestly.
I'm not asking you for a large financial contribution. But a sub is $5. And it doesn't matter how broke you are. If you have time to watch Twitch, you have $10, truly. If you don't have $10, you probably don't have time to watch Twitch because you should be working. You should be trying to earn money. It's not a ton.
Oh, this is different streamer did the exact same thing. Okay.
A ton of money. So being like, I'm broke, I can't afford to sub, that doesn't really track. What you mean to say is, I'm so irresponsible with my money, I can't support the entertainment that I enjoy.
When streaming platforms like Twitch and YouTube were created, there was no focus on making money. It was only after a couple of years of the platforms thriving that they opened their doors for the creators to make money, which is why there's so much nostalgia for those who watched streamers when it first took off. They were being genuine, they weren't worried about how much money they would make from the video, because there was no money to be made. It wasn't a job, it was a hobby, and the people genuinely loved it. But now, about 75% of kids under age 18 all want to become professional streamers or YouTubers. Their primary motivation for this is that they see how much streamers make and they want a slice of the pie. And this emphasis on monetization has overshadowed the original ideas of platforms like Twitch, which was to provide entertaining and engaging content. The streamers driven by an opportunity of wealth and attention has led to the degeneration of the streaming experience. Whilst we've seen streamers ruin their life on the stream already, something else we see now is how the audience love to feast on people in the lowest points of their life. Like FouseyTube, who literally lost his mind and got himself arrested on stream. Now, FouseyTube's journey on YouTube...
What did he get arrested for? I don't really know.
YouTube has had a lot of ups and downs. He first found fame making prank videos on YouTube, but as the prank period of YouTube came to an end, FouseyTube eventually found himself broke and struggling to adapt. He started making less money and getting way less views, a situation he didn't know how to deal with. By 2015, FouseyTube turned to vlogs and motivational videos and started his own streaming channel on Twitch. An average 100,000 views per YouTube video, he was still unsatisfied, and he couldn't afford his exorbitant lifestyle. According to Fousey himself, he went from having $200,000 a month to less than $10,000 a month, which is still a lot of money, but for someone like FouseyTube, this wasn't enough. And with this, his mental health was steadily declining, and he started to have unpredictable outbursts on stream. Then in July 2018, in an attempt to save his career, FouseyTube wanted to create a major creator event, which ultimately led to a dramatic failure, as FouseyTube promised his viewers and anybody who came to the event that they'd be met with big names like Drake and Snoop Dogg. The event was going to be called Hate Dies, Love Arrives, and was actually promoted by Logan Paul, Roman Atwood, and Keemstar, but ultimately the event was
I didn't know that Logan Paul promoted it. I don't remember that. I remember watching this documentary.
It took an even deeper dive from the original plan.
This is like back in like 2017, maybe? This is a long time ago.
FouseyTube got somebody to call in a bomb threat, shutting the entire thing down. Fousey did this so that he could move the event to the parking lot, where he could give a batshit insane speech, talking about how he wanted...
Wait, did he get someone to call in a bomb threat? I didn't know. Was that true, actually?
to unalive himself.
I have bipolar and depression. That what you put into my head made me want to kill myself.
Thankfully, this led to FouseyTube taking a break from the internet to work on himself, and it seemed to help. He disappeared for a solid year, and he seemed a lot more happy on his return. He wasn't uploading as many videos and popped up in a few interviews, but his presence died down for the most part. But this would all change in 2021. While he continued to make YouTube videos, he started streaming on Twitch a whole lot more. Whether he was sleeping, driving, or eating, it was all on camera. He claimed that he was in a better place mentally now, and that his audience no longer had to worry about him. But as soon as the views started coming in again, viewers would start to notice old manic state habits. There was a bit of a question of whether he was doing this for the camera or because he was slowly losing himself. Either way it worked, as by 2023, he had over 29,000 Twitch viewers and 300,000 followers. He would then hit a real high as he was approached by Kick and signed a $15 million streamer deal. This was life-changing. It meant that Fousey had the freedom he'd been pushing for. So he started running a 24/7 stream of his life to make the most of his virality. He would head off camera while going to the toilet or showering, and pretty much viewers could watch every moment of Fousey's life. As his viewers only increased, it motivated FouseyTube to do even crazier things.
YouTube is the new home of NFL Sunday Ticket. Watch all your favorite NFL teams out-of-market Sunday.
Mental health was getting worse and worse, but it was all worth it for the stream and the money, according to Fousey. While driving, he'd close his eyes and let go of the wheel for several seconds, doing anything he could to engage his audience. But then he would do the despicable, when he met a drunk woman at an airport back in August 2023. Streaming his conversation with the woman, Fousey would learn she was a victim of human trafficking. And so more and more viewers would tune in to hear her life story as she broke down and cried. She was also clearly drunk at this point, and everyone watching felt heartbreak for her. It was an emotionally—
Didn't he end up having sex with her or something?
Gripping story of someone who survived human trafficking and was able to tell the tale. But then, all of a sudden, Fousey went off camera for about 10 minutes. And he would return, leaving the woman behind, and start bragging about how he had just banged the woman in the bathroom.
That's pretty fucking weird. And no, he didn't. You weren't on a fucking plane. So.
As the Mile High Club because I was in the airport, but I still joined it. I swear to God. I swear on everything I love. I swear on everything I love. I just joined the Mile High Club in the airport, in the men's bathroom.
When the community was outraged of Fousey taking advantage of her, Fousey then jumped back to his claims, denying it ever happened. But it does make you ask, why would he make the claim in the first place? Well, the answer to that is that Fousey knows his community. He knows they want him to do some of the most disturbing things on stream. He understands that his horrifying actions are way more entertaining than when he does something good on stream. It's a parasitic relationship where the audience feeds off the struggles of the creator, and it becomes a cycle. As the more extreme situations Fousey puts himself in, the more views come in, and thus the more money and clout. And so he feels he always needs to have these moments in hopes that the viewers keep watching him. And this momentum would keep building and building up until August 23rd, as Fousey reached his breaking point. Over the day, he physically assaulted 2 people and entered a manic state. You can see him unable to handle the situation mentally, and he becomes dangerous to those around him. All the while, this was the big spectacle. His live viewers skyrocketed. He'd gained all the views he'd ever wanted, but now his brain was so muddled, he couldn't appreciate it. As over the day, a troll would keep calling and harassing Fousey, making him believe that his family was in danger and that Fousey himself was in danger. And by the end of the day, Fousey called the cops.
There's a gun to my head right now. There's a gun to my head. Oh, ma'am, he left. Ma'am, he left.
Wait, what?
Help, get them. Help, bye. Ma'am, Intercontinental, what's my room number? Help, tell me. 2027.
The police eventually came and arrested Fousey, who was clearly in an uncontrollable state, after being detained by police and sent to a mental health facility. And we can only hope that he's taken that moment seriously and plans to step back down from stardom. But it's even harder to do now when his $15 million Kick deal is on. But the real question is, why do people keep on watching this? And how many other
$15 million?
Fouseys are there gonna be in the
Holy
coming years?
shit.
It's our innate need for parasocial relationships and dopamine at all costs that's driving this mental illness factory that we call streaming. And we could see this so clearly with a World of Warcraft streamer called Plump Rump Stung, an overtly obese streamer who sits on stream for hours at a time, taking edibles, getting high, and gaming. It seems like the streamer just based his entire personality on the World of Warcraft streamer from South Park, even wearing exactly the same shirt in all of his streams. And whilst he did manage to pull in a couple hundred consistent viewers, he'd reach his peak viewership after taking a lesson from Eric Cartman, when he defecated on screen right after a hardcore classic death. He didn't even end the stream and just carried on as if he didn't have a pile of shit in his pants. It wasn't a mistake moment that he couldn't handle, and he would even post the video separately on Twitch with the title "Streamer Shits Himself," seemingly doing this deliberately just to gather enough attention to fuel his ego, and the video quickly garnered attention with over 70,000 views. But is publicly shitting yourself really worth 70,000 views? Well, to him, it definitely was.
Disgusting.
As a couple months later, he did it all over again. And believe it or not, he isn't the only Twitch creator to do such a thing on stream. And now today, because of this, his channel is more popular than ever. And if anything, this just shows how toxic these Twitch
shit
viewers
himself
really are.
on stream.
While Twitch has been a space for diverse content to personalities,
Bro, I need to start stepping it
instances
up.
like these raise concerns about the direction of online communities and the potential toxicity within the audience. People just want to feel some sort of emotion these days, no matter how degenerate the content they're watching is. That's why if you open Twitch today, you'll probably find some half-naked girls in hot tubs on the front page. More and more streaming platforms like Twitch foster a toxic culture that rewards degenerate behavior over actual entertainment, which only incentivizes more and more streamers to push the boundaries to maintain viewership. And this is why we now have people streaming themselves doing illegal things on a regular basis, like this streamer named Olio Rojas, who captured the public's attention through a reckless and dangerous act as he sped through traffic at an alarming speed, reaching 160
Wait, was he
miles
streaming
per
at the
hour,
time?
with the live video abruptly ending when Olio Rojas crashed into a garbage truck after he lost control of his Honda. The impact caused his vehicle to spin into concrete, and the streamer injured himself very badly, as he would be hospitalized for a very long time. And it makes you wonder, how far is this cycle gonna go? How far are people gonna go for views in the future? Only time will tell.
I'm sorry, your phone won't work on our network. Too bad.
Bro,
All the
why
best
can
ones
I
are
not
only
get it?
$100.
I haven't gotten a...
The same lightning fast coverage on the phone you already love without overages or add-ons that jack up your bill. Ditch your old carrier and switch to Red Pocket Mobile.
You're kind of the home of, I think, what every YouTuber fears, right? Yeah. The decline.
Jesus.
What would you say you're worth today in total? YouTube ad revenue. That's the big boy. That's what's bringing in the primary cash monies right now.
And I showed you my numbers. I made about...
Things quickly go from being really funny and hilarious to like very stupid and pathetic.
$1 million. Incredible.
In 17 years.
That's actually...
Happy birthday, dear Stevie.
This is financial audit, not dating audit.
I actually think Big Mouth is
Netflix
really
has
bad
been in
too.
a lot of hot water over
Big
the
Mouth
past
fucking
year,
sucks.
From putting a stop to password sharing, incorporating ad-based content, and most importantly, all their recent cancellations. There's too many to even count, but it felt like every other day I was coming onto Twitter to see the news of either a new series being cancelled in the middle of production, or an existing show having the plug pulled on it before managing to reach its full potential. It's a real shame. Think about all your favorite shows. Which season of that would you consider your most loved? 99% of the time I'd have to assume it's something past the first couple. The more time folks are allowed to work on a show, the more they can truly hone in on their craft and perfect it. But here are all these series that'll just never be able to reach that potential. It's kind of sad when you think about it. Something else I always see when a show gets cancelled, however, is a statement somewhere along the lines of, "This cartoon gets cancelled, but Big Mouth is getting another season?" Oh yeah, Big Mouth is like widely acclaimed. I forgot about that.
Me and my big mouth. Big mouth. That's the show. That's the show.
Released in 2017,
Yeah, Big Mouth
Big Mouth
sucks, in
shows
my
the
opinion.
adventures of a group of kids as they face the horrors of puberty, with it being personified by a giant hormone monster who follows the children around, giving them advice and helping them explore these new feelings and emotions. And despite what the internet might want you to believe, it is a
Oh,
big
he's
hit.
just setting
You
that
see,
up.
when these adult animated comedies come out with ugly art styles, and clearly just created because some celebrity thought making a cartoon would be easy, they usually only last a season or two. But every now and then, one manages
Just
to
in
slip through
case
the
if
cracks.
someone comes
F
through,
is for
boom, boom,
Family
boom.
by Bill Burr is wonderful in my opinion. And it
Yeah,
rightfully
no,
got
that's
full
a
5
that is
seasons
really
with a
good.
definitive conclusion. But Big Mouth is a strange
I haven't
case.
watched the
And
last
if you look at
season,
most
though.
places online, you'll see nothing but pure hatred for the series. Yet, on Rotten Tomatoes, it sits at a 100% rating with critical acclaim across the board. It's currently on its 6th season with much more to come. How does that happen? I remember when the show came out, I thought it looked awful. Watched the first 4 episodes and then gave up on it. I had no real opinion on it, other than what I saw so many folks saying about it online. That it was the spawn of the devil and needed to be cancelled immediately. Which had me confused, as all these people constantly get angry about shows being taken off the air, and all the people working on it being out of a job. Yet Big Mouth is apparently so terrible that the same argument apparently doesn't apply to it. Surely it can't be that bad, right? Well, that's mainly because a lot of animation fans are hypocrites and only get mad at this when it shows they like and cheer when it's something they dislike. You know, they're the folks who say you shouldn't criticize something because people worked hard on it, yet love to crap on Big Mouth any chance they can get. But anyways, that's what I want to figure out today. Because over the past week, I sat down and watched through all 61 episodes of Big Mouth to try and come to a
Why does he
question
sound
that's
like
plagued the
that?
generation. Is Big Mouth really that bad? The answer may shock you. But first, you know what you should shove in your big mouth? All the tasty products found over at Factor. This video is sponsored by Factor. It's a new year, and you know what that means? New goals. And Factor is here to help you achieve every one of them. Save time and have the energy you need to tackle everything on your to-do list with Factor's ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. Having your source of income come from a site as unpredictable and malleable as YouTube, I can't afford not to spend every second of my day working on content. So luckily, Factor allows me to save time by skipping a trip to the grocery store, prepping and cleaning up, with their fresh, never-frozen meals that are ready in just 2 minutes. Finally, no, I can never leave. Traveling to America, I wasn't used to having all these food apps right at my fingertips, so Factor has been a great way to make sure I stick to a routine with healthy options for food. So head to Factor75.com today, or click the link below and use code LSMark60 to get 60% off your first Factor box. That's Factor75.com in the description, and use code LSMark60 to get 60% off your first box. And thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. Big Mouth is, in quite literal terms, a coming-of-age show, which if you were unaware is my absolute favorite genre. If your thing involves coming of age in some way, I'm immediately intrigued. Almost Famous, Submarine, Superbad, all some of my most beloved films, so I was really curious if Big Mouth at the very least makes for a good coming-of-age story. It doesn't. Created by Nick Kroll, best known for being the voice of the Fat Pig and Sing, great sign right off the bat. It stars his self-insert Nick and his best friend Andrew as they begin reaching puberty. Also, there's a girl called Jessie who they talk to, and also this wacky guy who hangs around called Jay. They imply that the four of them are good friends, but we almost never see them do regular stuff friends do, so the best I can say is that they're all acquaintances. In the Big Mouth universe, when a kid reaches a certain age, they're visited by the hormone monster if they're a boy, or the hormone monstress if they're a girl. Their whole purpose being to, in theory, guide them through all the strange feelings and things that come with puberty. When you hear that idea, you're like, what the hell? That's like perfect. Coming of age is all about characters losing their innocence in a way, so having the literal personification of that lost innocence is genius. How could they possibly?
But it's pretty perverted. Yeah.
I mean, how would that even be possible?
Guys, you had a slam dunk. What happened here? The biggest issue that I think plagues Big Mouth, at least for season 1, we'll get to the rest when we get there, but it's that there's such clear disregard for any sort of rules, wanting to go for a style that's much more akin to Family Guy, where outlandish things can just happen. Whether it be supernatural like ghosts, Nick having one in his attic that he talks to, or sci-fi like them going inside the internet, or stupid like the pillow thing again. There are no set rules in place for what can and cannot happen, and while I can see the advantages for that sort of humor, being how many more opportunities for wacky jokes it leads to, I can't help but find it completely unnecessary in what's advertised to be a relatable, grounded story. When the series was coming out, the writers and creators kept talking about how they were pulling experiences from their actual childhoods and showing the gross parts of puberty in all their glory. But then you watch this show and it's just a bunch of nonsense. The biggest offender to this is the hormone monster himself, Maury. Again, he's the personification of the kid's emotions, so you think that he'd be exclusive to Andrew, his kid. Like, there's not actually a giant monster following this kid around all the time. He's like a metaphor, you know? You know? But no, it's like a business. It's his job to follow around all these kids and help them deal with their emotions, but at the same time they have influence over their actions. Like there are times where Andrew blames Maury for how he behaves, and even then, I could accept that, but we're expected to believe that he's also the hormone monster for the other kids too?
Do you mean the hormone monster? Yeah, Maury. He's the fucking man.
It honestly reminded me of the Fairly Oddparents more than anything, but with a much dumber setup. Like, okay, imagine the Fairly Oddparents, but Cosmo and
Mom made me promise I'd come by today. It's my birthday.
Wait, today is your birthday?
Yeah.
Happy
Wanda are every kid's fairy godparents at the same time, and you're never meant to question how they balance all this. Even then, they established that there are other hormone monsters, like there's this old one who eventually becomes Nyx by the end of the season, but he's the only other one we see. So are there more we haven't seen, or what's up? Wouldn't it make sense for every kid to have their own unique one specifically catered to them? I don't know. Also, I have to take back what I said about them personifying their puberty like this being genius, because, as it turns out, the hormone monster is actually an alien, because a big blue guy came down from the sky millions of years ago and f***ed the Earth. How? Why would you overcomplicate such a simple idea? It should have been easy. So yeah, no, they're really there, which, goddamn, creates a whole cavalcade of other problems, such as... nobody ever decides to call out that Andrew has a giant monster following him around, except for one time when it's used as nothing more than a throwaway joke.
Hi, you're looking at me. How tall are you? There's a monster next to you.
Hey, what's up, Caleb?
I feel like that comment should be made a lot more frequently in this world, especially because it seems like nobody else has their hormone monsters following them around, or else we'd see them too, I guess. But not even, because when it's convenient to the plot, everyone just tunes him out and acts like he's not even there. Like there's this moment in season 1 where Nick and Andrew start fighting in the school hallway, but this is because the hormone monster told him to get mad. So if they can see Maury, then wouldn't they understand that this was a result of him egging Andrew on? They pick and choose for whatever helps their forced drama at that point in time. At the end of season 1, Andrew gets arrested by the police because they think he killed someone. It's very dumb, I promise. But then his parents get pissed at him for making up a story of a monster putting a hole through their drywall. But like, wouldn't his parents have remembered having their own hormone monster when they were kids?
Yeah.
How about time? Does it stop when the kids are talking to their hormone monster? The first episode sees Andrew arguing with him about whether or not to off during a sleepover at Nick's, saying he doesn't want to wake him up. But you're speaking so loudly, couldn't he hear this? Just have him be a metaphor and nothing else, it's that simple. It seems like this idea was come up with under the assumption it would operate under these specific rules. But the further it got into development, the more leeway they gave themselves for what they could get away with for the sake of comedy. And this may seem minor and like I'm just bringing in a bunch of nitpicks for the sake of complaining, but if you watched the show, you have to know what I mean by this. It is such a specific idea they're going for, that when they actively go out of their way to do stuff that doesn't make sense, it takes you out of it and leaves you utterly confused. And the more this happens, the less immersed I am in your world. And of course, the less immersed I am, then the less likely I am to be along for the ride and laugh at the absurdity. What doesn't help is that it completely feels at showing you how puberty is affecting these characters. Episode 1 just straight up jumps into Andrew talking to his hormone monster, but part of a story like this is seeing how puberty is changing the characters. Yet we get next to no time to establish and get to know these guys before they start going through these different stages in their life. How about the series starts with an exaggerated view on adolescence to show how big of a threat puberty is going to be treated? Have a scene of Andrew and his friends doing some kid stuff, and then out of nowhere the hormone monster shows up, imposing on his life and making it clear that he's here to stay. Andrew realizing by the end that things are going to be different forever from this point on. You know what does that well, actually? The goddamn intro! That last shot of the intro is great. That should have been an actual scene in the show.
Go away. You are not real. You're just some hormone monster my brain created.
I mean, yeah, no, that's just as impactful of an introduction. What definitely doesn't help is that none of these kids sound like kids. The whole gimmick is that Andrew is going through puberty, yet our main character Nick isn't. He's underdeveloped. Yet this is what Andrew sounds like.
I mean, I'm over at Missy's, and her mom was just about to make some decaf yerba mate.
And this is what Nick sounds like.
Andrew's got a date, so I'm staying at home. And I guess I'm going to a high school party?
This is prevalent with the majority of the characters, and it's yet another thing that just takes you out of it. But I think what really gets me more than anything is that despite having all the pieces here for a truly amazing coming-of-age story, they drop the ball with just about everything. Each season of Big Mouth explores a different aspect of growing up, whether it be sexually or facing your anxieties or whatever, which is a good idea. So I can delve more into specifics that relate to those things when we get there, but to start, I think it's at least important to lay the groundwork for what I believe makes a good coming-of-age story, and our Big Mouth absolutely feels at all of them. 1. The characters have to want something. It can be anything, to be seen as older, acceptance. They need to have some goal in mind, your average hero's journey, if you will. But in Big Mouth, all the characters seem to just be going through the motions. Andrew seems like he's trying to fight puberty, but he doesn't really do anything about it. It's more so just used for jokes about his unwillingness to go along with the hormone monster. Nick wants to be seen as older, but despite being the main character, he feels like he barely has any presence in the series. Andrew comes off way more like the protagonist. There are a few episodes in here that truly show that aspect of him well. I think the one where his sister is having a house party illustrates this the best, but even then there's not really much of a conclusion he ends up at, which leads into the next point. 2. Your characters need to mature in some way. They need to start and end the episode.
Bro, I've been helping out Red way
This
too
one,
much.
They at least try to achieve. The show does this thing I honestly really love, where each episode builds into the next, where they all have their own standalone stories, but where each character ends in the previous one is where they start in the new one, which is used to tell even more stories. I love that. For example, in that house party episode, Andrew and his girlfriend Missy get together and she pressures him into making out. And so when the next one starts, their parents find out about this and split them up, leading into a story about them needing to continue their love in secret. The big issue here is that while I love the idea, in execution they mostly fumble when it comes to the characters feeling like they're changing in a natural way. Episode 6 sees Andrew realize that Nick is embarrassed by him, because Andrew suddenly acts super embarrassing out of nowhere in front of these cool kids. And it's like the writers know they have to have some sort of turnaround by the end, and so Nick just randomly decides to apologize at some point. Again, the pieces are there, but the way they connect is just missing. Even for simple stuff, it feels like they're just hitting beats because they know they can derive conflict from it. Episode 7 shows Andrew trying to control his urges by not off, which greatly upsets the hormone monster. And so during his and Missy's first kiss, he blows up and causes an earthquake, which ruins it, which he can do, I guess. And then the next scene just has Maury come in saying that he'll refrain from anything sexual from this point on. This is just for the purpose of having that moment at the end where he realizes that he can't fight those urges and screws up massively, giving Andrew an erection, which, again, he can do for some reason. I thought he was a separate entity. But there was no scene of the hormone monster wanting to make that change. He just suddenly had this change of heart off screen. Why? Because the writers knew they needed to bring up some new conflict. This is a problem present throughout the entire series. That episode where Missy and Andrew continue their love in secret shows her randomly, out of nowhere, start to feel overwhelmed by everything and eventually break things off by the end. Yet there has been nothing present to show her attitude switching, especially because she was the one being pushy about the relationship. Things just happen. 3. A loss of innocence. A key part of any good coming-of-age story that goes well with maturing is the characters at some point having clear separation between how they were and their new mindset. For example, Rick and Morty has an excellent part where Morty wants to use science to create a love potion for his crush to fall in love with him. A very childlike idea. This then backfires, causing the destruction of the world, and so he and Rick have to abandon it, find another universe where they're dead, bury their bodies, and take their place. It's then followed by this wonderful shot of Morty just walking around his house. Everything else is the exact same, but his view on the world has now changed, which is reflected then in his more cynical attitude as the series follows. Big Mouth really has nothing like. No moment is really treated with any kind of severity because they're more obsessed with telling wacky lol random jokes.
You know who's funny? The Big Bang Theory.
What further ruins this aspect is that the writers clearly had no restraint when it came to differentiating writing for kids versus adults. See, when you write for a kid character, especially if you want to make them come off as realistic and relatable, you gotta almost put yourself in the mindset of a child. Like, okay, a child would not randomly start yelling and tell their mother that they're the patriarchy. None of these guys ever seem innocent at all, so there's really nothing to lose. They're basically just mini adults from the get-go.
Yeah.
We know what we're talking about.
It's nice to talk like men.
Yeah.
I crave emotional intimacy because my parents have a no-touch policy with me, so I don't really feel at all.
They're missing that moment, that big moment where the kids start to see the world for what it truly is, marking a transition in their mental state, where we see them truly grow up. But instead of having any kind of subtlety to it, they just throw the entire message of the show in your face. There's a particularly bad moment in the second to last episode where all the characters break into song, although less break into song and more like they're going about their usual conflicts than a character announces they're gonna sing a song and suddenly everyone just joins in at once, dancing in unison like some creepy cult-like ritual. In the classic piece, Life is an effed up mess, everyone gets a line that just explains the message of what's currently going on with them. Yeah, that screams confidence in your writing.
Children grow up and abandon you to die broken and alone.
There's a shocking amount of musical numbers littered throughout the season, ranging from surprisingly decent like this one where these ghosts sing about being gay to, yeah, that one.
And alone.
Yellow's just kind of being a douche.
But for the most part, the biggest problem that faces this season is that the writing is so obsessed with silly jokes that it never feels like there's any real conflict. Again, things are just happening. which truly sucks because there are good things about this season. I did not loathe my time watching it at all. There are a bunch of aspects I enjoyed a lot. For one, I think for a season meant to give you an idea of what the show is going to be like, they cover a bunch of good topics that relate to this theme. Andrew wondering if he might be gay, Nick screwing up being in a relationship with Jesse and trying to act like he was the one who broke up with her. There are good ideas in here, and I can only imagine they would have been handled infinitely better in the hands of someone who was more willing to focus on these rather than stupid hormone monster gags. Because believe you me, the humor is bad. Really bad. I can get something out of a show like Family Guy, which creates the expectation early on that the rules can be bent whenever they see fit if it makes for a funnier joke. But when you have a show with as grounded and focused of a concept as Big Mouth, the last thing I want are epic meta jokes about the fact that I am indeed watching a cartoon at the moment. With the new Velma show coming out, I'm honestly very happy to see more people come out and collectively agree that meta humor is getting super tired and not nearly as biting as it was 10 years ago. When a show used to be meta, it was so few and far between that it caught you off guard. You weren't expecting it, and because every artist working on these cartoons didn't have an easy way of contacting them like we do now with social media, it was kind of surprising and nice in a way to see that employees on these cartoons were just like real people who were almost trying to talk to us through the show. But ever since you got compilations of these fourth wall jokes blowing up on YouTube and such, it comes off more like people want to capitalize on this popularity and cram in as many winks and nods to the audience as possible, just so they can eventually make a goddamn Twitter post about it. It's not funny anymore, it's just cheap and comes off like you're so afraid of telling a sincere story that you've got to raise your eyebrow to the viewer every 5 seconds, so they don't think you're too invested in your own world and the story you're trying to tell.
Is it not? Please tell me they put a Walgreens in this Netflix.
I thought that you fell
What you guys
down the
gonna watch
stairs
next?
for a
You wanna hang out?
And when it's not doing that, it's just taking the worst of Family Guy, where the gag just comes from over-explaining stuff in place of a joke, hoping that you'll eventually find it funny. Okay, I've held off on it for too long, but I gotta say it. This show looks terrible. A pattern you can easily notice is that when you get cartoons made by celebrities, they usually look awful. I love F is for Family, but it is one of the worst looking shows I've ever watched. Right below that one, though, is definitely Big Mouth. I appreciate the fact that they're trying for a somewhat different style than what we're used to in these adult comedies, but it seems like the new things they do are all for the worse. Like giving the characters these ginormous lips that protrude off their face. They all look like fish, and it is so unappealing it's gross to even look at. Then there's the strange, realistic eyes. Well, okay, realistic compared to everything else, but they've got so much unnecessary detail that it looks like a bad, hyper-realistic creepypasta. The animation itself, though, is fine. I was surprised to watch it and see there's actually quite a bit of frame-by-frame in there, which you can tell by the line width changing sometimes. But it's really the art style bringing everything back. Also, the backgrounds are super inconsistent. It really bothers me. Sometimes they have colored outlines, sometimes they have super harsh shadows, sometimes they look right out of Family Guy, and then when they cut to establishing shots of the school, it looks like this. One thing I see a lot of people take issue with is what they actually decide to animate and show you on screen. Hell, it only takes 5 minutes into the first episode before you see one of their dicks. It took The Simpsons a movie before they went that far. It's not even the worst of it. I think the strangest part would have to be when they fully animate and show a face on the girl Jessica's, you know, and they hold on shots of it for an uncomfortably long time.
Like a show about a bunch of kids.
Isn't that basically just like
Holy shit, I hope not.
You're not helping your case, Big Mouth. No, I don't inherently think that a show starring teenagers can't focus on actual topics. You know, that's been done successfully time and time again. Look at the In-Betweeners, our sex education. There's countless examples. And to say that shouldn't be explored at all is a very reactionary place to take such an argument, especially considering that such a large part of growing up and coming of age is the sexual aspect. But, and that's a big but, Big Mouth drops the ball by going too far into it. Like, because it's a cartoon, they really do get away with showing everything, and it's really not necessary. That's all I'm going to say on this uncomfortable matter. Overall, Season 1 of Big Mouth didn't leave me absolutely hating it, but more so annoyed at how badly they butchered what was such a brilliant idea for a cartoon. There is so much missed potential here, with solid concepts yet pretty bad execution. Mainly from the show not knowing whether or not they want to tell a more grounded story or funny Family Guy gags. It is just the first season, however. Those tend to be rough, with the writers and showrunners still getting a grasp on what exactly it is they want to do. So let's check out the second season to see if they begin to refine any of these ideas. Season 2 of Big Mouth focuses on... Oh, God damn it!
And mostly as a joke. It was Logan Paul level hilarious.
Jay, look at you.
Let me get this out of the way because I really do not want to talk about it any longer. But if any of the stuff they showed in Season 1 made you uncomfortable, then please, for the love of God,
Damn it.
do not watch Season 2. It will not change your mind because they get away with showing much worse. Saying this, somehow. On the actual writing side of things, this season is miles better than the first, although it definitely isn't without its issues.
Oh, yeah, it's called society. Privileged, white, cis, hetero, male.
I think what really helps is they build around one single theme instead of just doing whatever comes to mind. The humor takes you out of it less, and the fact that episodes barely have an ending isn't as big of a problem as the events of them will 9 times out of 10 pay off later. Again, the theme for this season is sex and shame. Dude, can I just say this is the worst possible topic that I could have done after YouTube integrates this new swearing stuff? I swear to God. Anyways, each of the characters have their own arcs in relation to this, each doing a solid job at standing apart from one another. Andrews is building off the previous season where he was turning into a pervert.
Bro,
Bliney's will
that looks like fucking Doja Cat.
Cross getting more and more depraved with each episode. Jesse and Missy are feeling self-conscious about their bodies upon seeing this other girl in their class maturing faster than them. Meanwhile, Jesse is also dealing with her parents being on the verge of a divorce.
There's so much to protect in our lives. That's why nationwide is on your side.
Here's to making every moment merry for every pet on your list.
And acting out in different ways because of this. Like an episode where she and Nick smoked the weeds for the first time. All while Nick is dealing with new hormone monsters, trying to get with the girl I mentioned before and subsequently messing things up with her. Jay's there too. They don't drop the pillow stuff. Seeing that pillow stuff continue literally throughout the rest of the season made me realize this is probably something that average Big Mouth enjoyers thought was hilarious, which further made me realize that a lot of the stuff I find confusing about this show, such as the complete lack of rules, which has not improved here, trust me, with the kids now at certain points being able to see each other's hormone monsters, is probably something that a lot of folks never even consider when watching. I think it's important to acknowledge that many people choose not to think about media critically like that, which is completely fine. But I don't know, I think it's at least worth addressing that a lot of the stuff I complain about here are probably things that people love about the series.
Bro, I haven't gotten 110.
I feel kind of exposed.
There's a monster next to you.
Hey, what's up, Caleb?
Case in point, all the funny meta humor, which is only ramped up with Season 2 and is getting increasingly more obnoxious. I really don't know how much longer they keep this up for.
You got 5 fingers, don't you?
Well, actually, I have 4, but that's pretty standard animation.
What's even worse is that, even in the last season, there are so many jokes here about Netflix and how amazing it is. Like, they desperately want to sell you on the streaming service, but if you're watching the show, then that means you already have the streaming service.
Gina, streaming on Netflix has never been easier.
This Netflix, it sounds expensive.
You'd think so, but it's not, Gina.
You know, unless you were to pirate it.
But Andrew?
What?
Slender Man is.
Yeah, that last one wasn't meta, but I wanted to show it anyway. All the arcs are nothing stellar, but I do like the way it all culminates at the end. Particularly with this new character, the Sheem Wizard. He's basically just the embodiment of one Sheem, but again, he does it for everyone. I love how he haunts Andrew, judging him for every bad choice he makes and making sure he doesn't forget about them, making him anxious and paranoid. And the two-parter where all the kids are locked in the gym for the night only to realize they're all haunted by the same being is great. Could have done without the ending, but an idea is there. They even come back to it in the final episode where we see him explain that to have Sheem is a good thing. Without Sheem, what's there to stop you from doing anything you want? The Sheem Wizard is probably the best to have handled the subject in the series, especially his introduction. Wish we could have got one for the hormone monster too.
I didn't put those
Point
in
is, there are
there.
concepts in season 2 that are way more fleshed out compared to the last, and some of them actually aren't too bad. I also really like Nick's new hormone monster. Okay, wait, let me rephrase. In concept, I really like Nick's new hormone monster, because in practice, he's annoying as fuck. He's new to the job and inexperienced, and so that reflects Nick's choices of how he handles the relationship with the girl he likes. After he makes out with her, the monster encourages him to tell everyone because they're so excited and eager, which predictably backfires later on.
What?
It's funny, it's almost like these are greatly improved when each kid has their own specific hormone monster that caters to them. Huh. Still though, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this season is amazing or anything. It's got quite a bunch of issues that for sure bog its mind. Let's start with the minor complaints and work our way up to the more glaring problems. First of all, that episode where Nick and Jesse smoke is super lame. I have yet to see a cartoon that accurately conveys what that does to you. Not that I would know, So yeah, you do not see things jumping out at you or start to have your limbs bend and contort, fusing with others. You don't see wacky magical rainbows and flying dragons. You're mostly just chilled out and sit around eating whatever the hell is in front of you. Not that I would know. There's this episode early on that's all about abortions, and it is so lame. They spend the first couple minutes talking about how badass and brave they are for tackling such an issue, looking at each other like, whoa, folks are gonna be mad at this one. Then we see a couple unrelated segments where they are extremely on the nose about what the points they're trying to make are, literally having all their dumb characters talk about how abortions are bad, so the smart characters can come in and list all these epic abortion facts.
But it's mostly abortions.
Oh, common misconception, Jay. Abortions make up only a tiny percentage of what they do.
Yeah, they also do breast exams.
Educational for sure. I'm positive many 12-year-olds learned a lot of stuff watching it, but I'm watching this for entertainment, not for a lecture. By far the worst aspect, however, is what they end up doing with Jesse by the end of the season, because it is a genuinely interesting idea and they do nothing with it. See, they very naturally build up to Jesse feeling more and more fed up with everything throughout the season, to where by the final episode we see her run away from going to a therapist with her mom, and going into a portal with Nick and Andrew to the world where the hormone monsters come from. I don't... Like, why is this needed here? It's very obvious that this is just a backdoor pilot, like, whoa, look at all these quirky characters we could explore if this were its own show. I mean, I gotta give it to him, it worked. But here we see that Jesse's hormone monster is being fired and replaced by the depression kitty, meaning Jesse is now depressed. If we ignore how they establish in this very episode how without a hormone monster you won't go through puberty, so you know, how's that gonna work for her? Also ignoring that the kitty puts her in a depression ward where she's gonna spend the rest of her life, which doesn't make sense as a shocker. That's not what happens when you're depressed. But it's evident they're using this whole thing as a metaphor. You know, the cat is laying on top of her and therefore she feels like she can't even get out of bed. Very obvious analogy they're making here. But the way they end up defeating her depression by the end is just by distracting it with a laser pointer, and suddenly she's not depressed anymore. Any of you guys watching this ever felt a little down? Boy, do I have the thing for you. I think what they were going for here is that your friends can help your depression, like letting them help you, but it was not handled well. Especially considering the implication here is that it fixes your depression, which sure it can help, but definitely not fix. I wouldn't know though, I don't have any friends. Just feels like it wasn't thought through. I think this for sure should have been the ending of the season to be explored further in Season 3. Instead, the cliffhanger we get is saying that now the hormone monstress is Nyx. However that works, why the hell am I even concerned about the rules at this point? Another slight plus I can give it is that the animation is a little better than last time. Backgrounds are somewhat more consistent and there's a greater variety of the shots. You can definitely see the added budget, I just, again, wish they chose not to animate certain things. Still though, all things considered, Big Mouth Season 2 is a major step up from the first on just about every front. It's nothing amazing, and I think that the first being so abysmal means that even the most minor improvements seem like a godsend, but I can see more of an effort being put in here, at least in the writing department. I could see a kid watching this and actually finding it relatable, whether it be from the body positivity or the shame stuff. Maybe we were too harsh on Big Mouth. Sure, it's got one bad season, but if the rest continue to improve upon the formula like this one, then I really don't know what I'm going to be coming out of this video thinking.
Oh, they talk about butt. If that makes you uncomfortable, buckle up, y'all.
Considering how well it worked out last time, I was shocked to see that for the most part, Big Mouth Season 3 abandons having a central theme, opting for a format much more in line with Season 1, which now leads me to believe that Season 2 was a complete fluke. They start with a 45-minute Valentine's Day special, which I'm almost positive isn't even supposed to be part of the season, more so just a middle episode between Season 1 and 2, but it honestly does a solid job at connecting both of them together, building off the Season 2 finale, and leading it into where these characters will go in Season 3, mainly with Jess starting to believe that he's bisexual, wanting to screw both male and female pillows. I still can't believe they haven't dropped that by now. But we also see Nick dealing with his new hormone monstress, finding out that he's her first boy and shows signs of going through female puberty, however the hell that works. They try to shove in way too many characters to this special, but it gets to the point of being stupid.
So is he a tranny? Like, are they trying to make him a tranny?
There's so much going on that it winds up
and saying that transgenders are, this is that's fucked up.
Everything out. I also really like that the second act low point has the full version of the intro theme playing. I want to reiterate this from earlier, but the intro to Big Mouth is quite literally the best thing about it. I absolutely love that final shot. I wish the actual show was that good with its image.
Mobile games are going big. Clash of Clans.
The way she's dressed, she could be a boy, or a girl, or a minion from the Despicable Me franchise.
Sadly, I don't think the next bunch of episodes does nearly as good a job at following this up, mainly due to the plots they choose. We have a plethora of bizarre, creepy, and not all that interesting choices here. such as Nick getting a smartphone which can talk to him and makes him addicted to it, clearly going for that whole kids these days are glued to their technology theme. They for some reason thought that riveting arc needed a whole 2 episodes dedicated to it. Then we have one where Nick and Andrew are going to Florida to visit Andrew's family, where he falls in love with his cousin and makes out with her. And then the next one continues this with an A, B, and C story that could not be more tone deaf from one another. We have Jessie trying to learn how to it with many more up-close shots of her, you know what. Jay is now staying at Nick's house, which makes Nick jealous as he worries that maybe his family likes Jay more than him. Andrew's trying to send a hint to his cousin.
Sorry, I'm not good with story. I'm more of a joke guy.
You don't have to tell me twice. More than any other season, this one definitely feels like they were doing these kinds of plots for the sake of stirring up controversy. Although, ironically enough, what I remember folks being mad about when this came out was the new character in class who talks to everyone about how she's pansexual and starts explaining what it means to all the normies, which is an actual word used.
And not to make all you normie shit your old lady undies, but I am pansexual.
Holy shit.
I will say, however, by the last 4 or so, it starts to pick up again.
So gay.
Those 4 episodes feel like they directly build off the end of season 2. There are some good ideas in here that they exaggerate to a degree that adds to the message they're trying to give without going into the territory of being too outlandish. Such as one where the boys make a list of all the girls in their grade, and in response all the girls name one of the boys, creating all this social drama with people being upset or egotistical about their rankings, to the point where an app is made to keep track of it all. I thought that was a pretty solid concept that takes a situation teens may find themselves in and pushes it for the sake of comedy. The depression kitty even comes back around this point. They probably realized how they squandered such a concept, and so aimed to try and actually tackle it with the stress and pressure created by the school's exams, causing Jessie to once again feel like there's no point in anything. How do they solve it this time? Her dad suggests that in the morning she should cycle to school to get her outside and also to exercise. Hey, it's an improvement. Hold the phone, is that fucking Fortnite? During that episode, all the kids start taking Adderall to help them focus on their exams, which causes their pupils to dilate, which only proves to me how much better these characters look without the creepy gem eyes.
Tests rule! I'm like young Sheldon!
They then end the season with another pair of episodes that aren't too bad. One where Nick and Missy start to grow feelings for each other and kiss in front of Andrew, and then Nick goes on to say he doesn't even like her, causing Andrew in the finale to blow up at Nick and yells at him for never really being all that great of a friend. Which is true. Again, there's rarely been any sign in this show of these guys actually hanging around each other. So to do something with that got me intrigued. It's too bad this is overshadowed by the strange what-if aspect where all the kids now have superpowers, don't question it. But they end on a good cliffhanger.
What?
Nick is now going off to camp for the summer all by himself, which is what the entire next season will focus on, I think. He and Andrew no longer like each other, Jessie is moving, and Missy gets a new hormone monster who encourages her to abandon all of her old friends. I wish the rest of the season were as focused as these last 4, because the other 7 are boring. Other than that, there are 2 characters that I've failed to mention so far in the series. That's Coach Steve and Matthew. Coach Steve is awful and not funny. His only joke is that Nick Kroll likes to do a funny voice and says random dumb things, and in the first season he's the prime character they turn to when they want to make stupid meta-humor. At the end of season 2, he gets fired from being the coach, which had me so relieved as it meant he'd no longer be intruding on these episodes anymore. But no, if anything, it only makes him more annoying, because they desperately try to find places to insert him back in for a scene or 2. Because God forbid we try to make an episode without the iconic Coach Steve. And so he just shows up every now and then to derail a plot, only to get his job back in the finale. Great. Matt is the opposite of Coach Steve, in that I went from really hating his character to actually liking him a lot. In the first season, his character trait is that he's the gay kid, nothing more than a stereotype, which is like nothing, you know? But there's a moment in the second season where he's confronted about this, being nothing more than a gay character used to be mean and insult everyone else, to where we see how the Shame Wizard torments him about this, going into his insecurities of being the only outwardly gay kid in his grade, already adding some depth to him. But they build off of it super well, having him and Jessie connect and become friends, her trying to help him get with another guy they meet during the Valentine's Day episode, the rest of the season showing him trying and feeling to be sincere with the guy, having all this internal pressure which is represented by his hormone monster, which is Maurice. This isn't relevant too much, but I think it's worth pointing out when Big Mouth does something right. I don't know, I feel like in some aspects this is a very easy topic for me. Like, I could endlessly crap on this for an hour and nobody would bat an eye and applaud. Which again is strange to me because usually I see complaints towards criticism and animation along the lines of, why are you wasting time crapping on this? People worked hard on it. Yet when it's a show that's widely hated, that argument goes out the window, I guess. But I want to make sure that I praise the series when they do something genuinely good, because otherwise, what would be constructive about this? Overall, my opinion on the show is very negative. I'd be hard-pressed to call myself a Big Mouth fan, but I could name 50 cartoons worse than this. I can definitely see why people like it at least. General audiences love this show. There's a reason why it's got 6 seasons, while a lot of other Netflix cartoons only get 1 or 2. It casts its net very wide. Like, puberty is something everyone goes through, so its target demographic is much larger than a lot of other stuff in the service. This may seem unrelated, but I think it's worth mentioning. I don't like Big Mouth, but I can 100% understand why people do. I went out of my way to reach out to some folks who genuinely enjoy it, and I kept hearing the same thing, that it is willing to go into all these taboo subjects that other shows avoid, that it does force you to sit and look at the gross parts of growing up, and I can see how that would make teenagers watching it maybe feel less alone, but again, no, I don't really need to see all of this stuff. Big Mouth Season 3 is probably in between 1 and 2 in my opinion. 2 is alright and 1 is pretty bad the whole way through, and while a large chunk of Season 3 is like 1 in that regard, those last few episodes reminded me of the best of 2, and I can only hope now that they're aiming to have the next season entirely focus on one setting with a set of characters, that it causes things to be even more focused on the character dynamics. Let's see.
Who is watching this garbage? The neo trolls on YouTube are right. This show is disgusting. You know who had a good intro song?
This guy stinks!
I know. I mean, the main characters are kids, but the show is so filthy.
It's too much.
I am extremely happy to say that Season 4 of Big Mouth might just be their best yet. It didn't go in the direction I was expecting, and I know being the best season of Big Mouth isn't exactly high praise, as in reality it's just okay. But credit where credit's due. I didn't think this one was all that bad, even if it does fall into a lot of the same traps as the previous seasons. Didn't need an entire episode about masturbation. Initially, I figured this entire thing would take place during summer camp, but no. Only the first 3 episodes are, with the rest taking place back in their regular school. With them not even really doing all that much here that relates to camp, it really is just a change of background scenery, as an excuse to have Nick and Andrew rekindle their friendship. I liked this whole thing though. Andrew getting the upper hand for once and befriending all of Nick's camp buddies like Seth Rogen child, and they even introduced a trans character, and I think they tackle that stuff pretty well. But this stuff is all but forgotten after summer ends and they all go back to school to see how everyone has changed over the past few months. Jay and Lola are now dating.
No, because then I get second.
You can tell because she has a new haircut. And some new creatures have followed them home. The anxiety mosquitoes. Yeah,
You
so this
fucking
is a season
attack
all
Red.
about the subject of anxieties and the different ways they can take form. A move which I'm glad they took was once again it allows them to keep.
Walmart's amazing holiday deals are happening now. Save big on must-have fashion, top tech, and so much more. Walmart has deals for every gift on their list. Ready, set, give.
Your fate is mine.
Keep building off this concept the whole way through. Everyone's anxiety getting the better of them before ultimately in the end managing to overcome it. After a whole bunch of nothing and making yet another episode about him wanting to get with his cousin that ends with him off to the corpse of his grandfather,
What the
Andrew out of
fuck?
nowhere starts to worry about death, overcome with dread at the fact that it lurks around every corner and that he really has no control over it. Missy is struggling with her image after she starts to get more in touch with her own culture after feeling like her family were trying to suppress it. Can you guess how they tackle this progressive subject? With a Black Panther parody, obviously.
It feels like Wakanda.
Speaking of progressive, during this season, Missy's voice actress changes after her previous VA, and Nick Kroll decided that it wasn't cool for a white lady to be voicing a black character. That's well and good, but I find it funny because not once, but twice in this season do they make jokes acknowledging that very fact. Had no problem joking about it multiple times.
My mom's white, my dad's black. I'm voiced by a white actress who's 37 years old.
Isn't it funny this white woman voices a black character? She can't say the N-word because IRL, she's white. Okay, but seriously though, we care deeply about fair representation.
Yes, you can. I promise you, it is not okay for me to say that word.
It took a bit of getting used to, but honestly, I think I prefer the new voice. It's way less whiny and high-pitched. They yet again revisit the stuff with Jessie being depressed, now having moved and attending this fancy private school where she doesn't fit in, opting to start skipping class to hang out with her new boyfriend. It's kind of it for the most part until the ending. Nick definitely gets the most attention, which makes sense, especially considering that so far I'm not all that sure about why I'm supposed to like him as our protagonist, because he's been nothing but an asshole for a majority of the show. But here we get to see more of his insecurities start to shine through and overcome him, due to the anxiety he
Bro,
suffers.
this guy
We see that his biggest fear is dying alone, feeling like nobody will ever love him, which is sad. They show how he actually has feelings for Jessie that comes out of nowhere. They have not even implied anything with them since like the start of season 1. But because of this, seeing her with her new boyfriend ignites these emotions from him, which is followed up in possibly the strangest episode in the entire series at this point. So, out of nowhere, we suddenly see the life of future Nick, where he's a big shot comedian. I sure do love when creators insert themselves into their own shows and make themselves celebrities. The guy even calls himself Nick Star. But we see that the world is all desolate and on the brink of destruction, to where Nick has to return to his hometown to attend the funeral of his friend Miss. Wait a minute. That's the same exact plot as the South Park Future special, and this one came out first. What the hell? He goes back so he can confess his love to Jessie so they can escape the Earth together before it blows up, in which they do and are about to frick each other. Also, I like how they show restraint in showing adult Jessie's private parts but not kid Jessie. Whoa. But then she reveals it was all a trick, she blows everyone up, and Nick realizes that he truly is all alone in the world. Oh yeah, and it was all in his imagination. Love it. This episode honestly isn't very good. Way too much of it is just showing us what the future looks like instead of telling an actual story. Like, Jessie isn't even introduced until the last 10 minutes, but just remember this stuff. It comes back later, I promise. After this, there's a Halloween special, which I genuinely think may be the best episode in the entire series. It is genuinely kind of alright, showing all the kids enter a haunted house where they're drugged and experience their own personal living hells, where they then have to overcome what's causing them all this stress and anxiety. Andrew learns that there's nothing he can do to stop his eventual death, so there's no use in stressing about it. Missy learns that she doesn't have to act one single way, and that she's made up of all different and varied sides to herself. Matthew, oh yeah, his mother learned that he was gay earlier on, realizes that it's not the end of the world now that she knows, and that ultimately everything will be fine. And Jessie learns that while she can't stop the negative stuff going on in her life, she can at the very least have gratitude for the little things that she may take for granted in her everyday, seeing that there's a lot to appreciate about her life. They all have a nice little arc. Everyone but Nick, who learns the message of all is protecting himself and never putting himself out there so he'll never get hurt. His future self even returns by the end to ensure him that by choosing this option he'll be submitting being alone for the rest of his life. This is the best episode, but I couldn't even recommend checking it out, because it relies so much on the build-up of the previous stuff, which is
You fucking attacked Green.
like the one from 2 episodes ago, where it's just 4 random stories of the characters all jerking off. You know, it's not that amazing. But the finale builds off this one, although possibly in the worst way it could have. Because Nick wakes up to see that he's now a lost soul, his body having been possessed by future Nick. Okay, why is he doing this? How did future Nick travel back in time to get here? So did he really meet his future self in the Halloween episode, or was it from the drugs? Never said. The whole point is to show everyone trying to act on what they learned in the last episode, only for future Nick to come around and undo that progress, where Ghost Nick then has to try and uplift his friends again. It's a little too fantastical for my tastes. Like, it does a thing similar to the end of Season 2 where the solutions to this stuff is too simple. Like, Jessie sees that helping Nick makes her less depressed, which I'm pretty sure is the exact wording she chooses. But, like, it would distract her from it, sure, but not make it shrink. There's a lot of moments in this show where they treat these emotions super simply, and I'm beginning to accept that that's all they'll really do with them. Which wouldn't be bad if they weren't treating this like it's the most groundbreaking advice ever. Hey guys, here's some helpful tips to being less depressed. Number 1, exercise. Number 2,
sick.
Dig on your friends' problems too. Number 3. I like the moment at the end where Nick goes inside his own body and has to face the embodiment of his own anxieties, learning to accept and embrace them as a part of him, overall ending the season on a fine note. Like I said, this was probably their best season yet. I enjoy aspects of 2 more, but it has stuff like the awful abortion episode and stuff, so I definitely feel 4 is more consistently alright. I have no idea where they can go from here though. Like, Nick is now in love with Jessie, but all the other characters feel as if they're getting to a point where there's not much to do with them. You know, this is the 3rd season in a row where Jessie has learned to deal with her own depression, so let's see where they take us in Season 5. Season 5 of Big Mouth is all about love,
Big Mouth.
with Jessie and Nick both getting a love bug. However, despite this being because Nick wants to get with Jessie, she on the other hand wants to get with the new girl from last season, Allie. You can see the conflict of interest here. I understand why they do this formula of introducing a new creature every season, so they're not bombarding you with all these guys at once. also because I don't think they ever thought that far ahead. But it just leaves me asking more questions. Like, wasn't Andrew madly in love with Missy during season 1 and 2, yet he never got a love bug? But the second Nick starts liking...
A couple years ago, I ended up in a motorcycle accident. I didn't have health insurance at the time, and now I have a plan that keeps me covered for $9 a month.
All plans cover doctor visits, prescriptions, emergency care, and more. Healthcare.gov is here for you. Enroll by January 16th.
911, this call is being recorded. What is your emergency?
You ready?
Suspect down! Get back! You can still make it out of this.
So, are you ready?
Jesse, it shows up for him? Boy, I sure hope somebody got fired for that blunder. Nick Kroll. The main issue I have with this season is how it lacks any kind of direction until the ending. They bring back a bunch of old stuff like continuing Jay and Lola's war from the last season after they break up. The Sheem Wizard comes back to star in his own episode again. It really feels like they've begun running out of steam, if that was even possible. Despite only being at season 5, it's already starting to reach that point where their characters are turning into one-note archetypes. Especially Andrew, he's the worst culprit to this. In the beginning he was an awkward and perverted kid, yeah, but there was still a part of him that felt real in a way. But after the second season they really started leaning into that perversion. To the point where it just feels like they took Jay's character from early on and replaced it with Andrew because now Jay has bisexual adventures to go on. Honestly, it may just be a case of getting in new writers and such as the show has went on. I actually checked out the writers and stuff and was shocked to see that Nick Kroll was only responsible for writing one episode of Big Mouth, that being the pilot. And while other producers such as Andrew Goldberg have been a little more involved throughout the show, it seems like season 5 and 6 are the ones with the least amount of involvement from its original creators. And while there's not a noticeable drop in quality or anything, it definitely does feel different. Like a lot of them though, it does begin to pick up by the last few episodes. Over time we're also introduced to another new creature, the Heat Worm, which Missy gets after becoming jealous over Jesse and Allie stealing her idea or something, I don't know, which causes her to go online and epically troll them all. Nick then also gets one after Jesse breaks his heart in front of the whole class, his love bug dying and coming back as a worm, Missy and Nick both bonding over their mutual hatred of them both, which turns their worms into heat snakes, growing larger and larger. This is the main theme of the season, but it is way less grand compared to what each previous one had built up. These ones remain episodic for the most part despite a couple running themes, like Matthew breaking up with his boyfriend to pursue Jay because he likes him now, I guess? Yeah, that's natural. There's also this big half-hour-long Christmas special where they tell a bunch of random Christmas stories using the Big Mouth characters, and I'm gonna be real with you, I skimmed through this one. There are not words to describe how much I hate when a show does these types of episodes. They are so bloody boring to me and I don't know why. I think it might come from my love of The Simpsons. As a kid, they would air around 4 Simpsons episodes every night, and so when one of them was a goddamn anthology I had already seen 5 times before, 7-year-old me was furious. Anyway, Big Mouth. I will say, however, there is some stuff to appreciate about it, like all the different art styles they go for, which are replicated pretty well, like a more action-y looking style, stop motion, and a storybook aesthetic. I think it's important to recognize that when a show has a generally ugly art style, I see a lot of folks trying to say that the artists and animators working on it are lazy or untalented, when that's not the case at all. They just do what they're told. And there were a few moments in Big Mouth where I could truly see that talent shine through. You know, well, this stuff. The puppets they use for in between the stories also look great. There's plenty to love here, but I just can't get with a bunch of random inconsequential stories. It ain't my thing. You know what definitely ain't my thing? The finale. So, by the end of the season, Nick realizes that he is like bad or something, and accidentally gets transported back into the monster world with no way out. And so Andrew and Maurice have got to go and find him. This is then followed up by Nick having to go and talk to the head of human resources, which is Nick Kroll standing on a green screen, and it becomes painfully obvious that this guy freaking loves himself.
You're using me and this whole show to work through your own from when you were a kid? Well, mine and all the other writers, but yeah, mostly mine.
He basically just stands there explaining the entire plot of the show to Nick, him realizing that he's just a cartoon character that's used to vent about stuff that happened to Mr. Kroll as a kid. And they make a bunch of jokes like, yeah, I do this and then, look, we're even writing the episode right now. But I don't think the guy did a single thing in this season other than voice the characters and stand here like a goober. I can see why this is funny in a meta way, but it comes off as super lame to me. This joke works in random comedies like Uncle Grandpa or Chowder.
Well, Uncle G, did you find out the meaning of your life?
Yeah,
Some bald guy drew me when he was bored.
But for Big Mouth, where the entire gimmick of the series is kids learning how to deal with how rapidly things change during puberty, to have smug-ass Nick Kroll stand there and basically give Nick the advice he needs comes off super lazy and basic. But alas, it works. Nick learns to stop drinking that Haterade, and his hate snake turns back into a love bug. Hooray.
Hold on, you voice me?
Yeah.
Oh, bummer. I thought I was Will Arnett.
Well, maybe people think that I'm Bojack.
No, nobody thinks that.
Yeah, I know.
Jesse also realizes to not be such a dick and apologizes to Missy, which too turns her hate
Damn.
into love, ending the season on a nice little note. Season 5 definitely feels like the turning point for Big Mouth. Season 4 already felt as if it could have been the finale to the series. It even ended on all the monsters singing about the themes of the shows. Who knows, maybe they initially thought that would be the end of the show before getting picked up again. But all the characters really seemed like they had reached a natural conclusion to their arcs, and from this point on it's like they don't know what to do with them anymore. So they keep adding in more and more monsters, hoping it creates more conflict. Still though, it was fine. There wasn't really any glaring issues with it. Although maybe at this point I'm just becoming numb to all the bad stuff and I'm just looking for any glimmer of hope I can glean from it. But even then, Season 5 is without a doubt the least memorable. Next up is the most recent season, number 6. After this, we're finally done. But I'm mostly curious, before we end, are they gonna get the series back on track or continue to derail from what the show started as?
What? Why? Because it's Big Mouth! These people are sick!
Here we go, the final season of Big Mouth. May just be the worst yet. I think there are other seasons of Big Mouth that have much worse episodes, but 6 overall just has the least amount of interesting ones. It is such a boring season. That also might have to do with me running out of steam while viewing these. It's been a week of non-stop Big Mouth. It has not been fun, I'll tell you that much. There is no real theme for this one. It's bizarre how they keep switching back and forth on that. But Nick meets his Scottish grandfather who eventually moves into their house to his mother's dismay. Missy likes this new boy who turns out to be asexual. She has literally nothing to do with the main cast anymore.
And so basically that's why my voice sounds a little different now.
Oh, it sounds like eventually they made the right choice.
Matthew needs to break up with Jazz, he's become too nice, and Andrew's parents have been increasingly fighting more and more. Oh yeah, also don't question why Maurice is pregnant.
What did the Stoics know about what separates successful people, I mean truly effective people, whether it's in your career, your relationships, or your community? It makes them different from unsuccessful people. What did ancient Stoics know about this that seems to be completely forgotten by today's modern average person? I'll give you a hint. The secret to success is hiding in this quote from Stoic philosopher Epictetus. Make the best use of what's in your power and take the rest as it happens. You know what he's talking about? Confronting anxiety and stress. Successful people don't run from stress. They don't let anxiety overcome them. Instead, you should recognize the upside of stress and learn to exercise your power over it. For me, I'm a business owner. I lead a team of almost 100 employees. Life gets stressful sometimes. I'm sure you can relate. Sleepless nights, anxiety that seems to come out of nowhere, early morning commutes, and long hours of needing to stay sharp and focused day in and day out. Luckily, I have a secret weapon to exercise my power over stress and anxiety. It keeps me sharp and focused all day long, and it's called Cortigon. Cortigon was the very first supplement that I formulated here at Umzu. It contains a potent dose of stress-relieving natural ingredients, including my favorite, phosphatidylserine, a fat-soluble amino acid derivative that helps your brain lower cortisol, which is your main stress hormone, and helps keep you focused and sharp. In fact, the phosphatidylserine in Cortigon has been extensively studied in humans and shown to not only lower cortisol levels, but also to improve cognition, memory, focus, symptoms of ADHD, and even improve exercise performance by helping control your stress levels naturally. If you're looking to make the best use of what's in your power, like Epictetus says, then I highly recommend trying Cortigon for yourself to help your body control stress, to harness the power that it has to make a positive change in your daily life. Just take one capsule of Cortigon in the morning, and within a few weeks, you're going to begin to notice how calm and focused you are throughout the day. Click through to read hundreds of 5-star reviews about how Cortigon has helped men and women lower their stress, improve their mood, and increase their attention to detail. Make the best use of what's in your power to harness the upside of stress by using the natural ingredients in Cortigon to sharpen your edge.
Montana holds some of the greatest hunting in the country, and much of it occurs on private land. Access to private land is a key part of hunting and wildlife management, but that access is at risk with every gate left open, piece of litter left behind, or torn up ag field. Get familiar with Montana's block management program and follow the rules, because we either do better or we lose access. It's that simple. It's up to us. Respect access, protect the hunt.
Sometimes in these clips, and then who this little smaller hormone monster is. Apparently in the Human Resources spin-off, Maury and Connie are gonna have a baby together, which I guess then transfers into Big Mouth. Although it's bizarre to me how this is structured, as it starts by establishing how Connie doesn't want the kid, but then a few episodes in, she suddenly does want it. So if you're watching Human Resources and want to follow along with the storylines, I guess that requires you to also check out Big Mouth. A while back, I decided to watch some of Human Resources when it came out, just to see if it were anywhere near as bad, and was surprised to see that I actually enjoyed it way more than Big Mouth, which a lot of people seem to agree with. I only saw the first episode, and while nothing amazing, I think a series focusing on these guys dealing with characters that aren't restricted to only children allows for a great variety of storytelling. It had this elderly lady with dementia plot in the first one, which I actually really liked. So if you want to look at any of this after watching the video, I'd probably recommend the first episode of Human Resources. I can't speak for the rest. I really don't like how they handle Andrew and his new girlfriend. I never enjoyed it when a show would bring in a long-term relationship that doesn't reset for one of the characters, and then a couple episodes later has them acting completely differently just for the sake of breaking them up again. Like, why even bother at that point? There are also two really awful episodes here that I wasn't a fan of. They do the same thing as Season 4, where we see 4 different characters going through a similar situation. This time it's all about the girls' private parts. Is that okay for me to say, YouTube? I have no idea anymore. They have so many close-up shots of Jessie violently scrubbing her thing, and we see it get bright red and itchy with yeast pouring out of it, like really red and eating during that episode. Then there's like a musical episode. I think it's a Mamma Mia parody, but it's Lola getting 3 dads all at once, and I'm glad to see that even 6 seasons in, she can remain the most consistently annoying character in the whole show. Nothing, though, could have prepared me for the finale, where, out of nowhere, all the characters wake up in different bodies. I don't know either.
I don't know, man. I never understand this in the finale. They always gotta do something cuckoo, and I don't get it.
Jessie is switched with her dad's new baby, Missy with some random actor she likes, Nick with his grandfather, and Andrew with his dad. Why they insist on inserting these random-ass supernatural elements to this show is beyond me, but it is a pretty terrible way to end the season. Basically, they're just able to fix whatever problem was currently facing them, because who they're switched with relates to it. Problem solved. Andrew's parents have made up, Nick's dad is back to being nice, Jessie learns to accept her new sister, and Missy learns that it's okay if her new boyfriend is asexual. Hooray for all. And that's Big Mouth. I really wish I had more to say about these past couple seasons. I realize now that I spent like 20 minutes talking about the first and 5 for the last. But I think that only goes to show how much the series feels like it's just out of energy. It feels drained. Like there's no more ground to cover. Recounting back to Season 1 honestly made it sound kinda quaint, when it was just these 5 characters going through their regular lives with a monster following them around. Now we follow like 20 characters and their additional 40 monsters who rarely ever even speak to each other anymore, as they learn the same messages over and over again. It at least seems that Season 6 hasn't left on a cliffhanger, which they usually do, which I hope means that with the next one, they aim to start fresh and get back to basics in a way. Scale back and focus on what... Okay, well, I was gonna say focus on what made it good, but that's not entirely true, is it? I guess I just don't like this show on a fundamental level. Such a contrarian, I know. But what pains me most is that I really, really love the idea behind Big Mouth. Exploring everything that comes with growing up in a non-episodic format, where characters can grow and change over time and that isn't reset every 22 minutes. Where it falters is the lack of restraint shown by the writers who clearly had a background in writing for Family Guy. There is merit to that sort of style, and again, I can completely understand why some folks like that very aspect of it, but it just doesn't do it for me. If Big Mouth had a better art style, stayed more grounded, and maybe censored some more of those uncomfortable scenes, I probably wouldn't think it was all that bad. But it all comes together to create a series that feels like it never really knows exactly what it's trying to be, and I think that's what holds it back the most. However, it's got a 7th season coming, and unless Netflix goes under, it isn't getting cancelled anytime soon. At this point, I have accepted our Big Mouth overlords, and I think you all need to as well. I'm tired of seeing it be brought up every other day, people taking any cartoon being cancelled as an excuse to crap on it, saying it should also be cancelled, when I promise you, Big Mouth is not taking the spot of another cartoon. It is now up there with Simpsons, Family Guy, and South Park as a series that'll never die. And the sooner we all accept that, the sooner we can move on from it. F is for Family is the best, worst adult cartoon I've ever seen. I'm aware those are two very conflicting adjectives, but it really is the best way I can describe my feelings towards this show. Because it does so much stuff I don't like. In any other case, I would absolutely loathe F is for Family. But somehow, I think it's one of the greatest and most underappreciated adult sitcoms I've ever watched. Just how is that? Well, we got a bit of time to go over it, haven't we? F is for Family released back at the end of 2015, and very recently at the end of 2021 aired its 5th and final season on Netflix. And for the longest time, I did not want to give this series a chance. I mean, just look at it. I think most had the initial impression that this was just going to be your standard run-of-the-mill Family Guy clone that comes out and is forgotten about in like a week. But I watched through the whole thing when the 4th season was out and kind of fell in love with it. I thought it was amazing. I know, I like stuff sometimes, it's crazy. But they somehow created a show that was miserable and depressing and uncomfortable, and I love it. Maybe that says more about me than anything. One of the biggest red flags I had when going in was that it was created by Bill Burr. Now, I have nothing against the guy. I don't think I've seen a single thing he's in other than Breaking Bad and the awful Teach 3 podcast interview. But there seems to be a trend where a comedian comes along, wants to make an adult cartoon, craps out the worst thing imaginable, probably under the assumption that making an animated cartoon was easy, and screws off onto the next project after it's cancelled in 4 episodes. We've got junk like Alan Gregory created by Jonah Hill, where he basically just took Stewie Griffin, tried to make him more of a smarmy intellectual, and called it a day, being dropped only 7 episodes in. Or on the other side of the spectrum, we've got something like Big Mouth by Nick Kroll, which undoubtedly is beloved by a large group of people and has been an immense success for Netflix. However, it certainly doesn't have the best reputation online. F is for Family, on the other hand, kind of just came and went without much fanfare, receiving generally positive reviews across the board, however, never once managed to reach the same level of popularity as its peers. Why is that? Again, to reiterate upon watching it, under what appears to be your average lowbrow Family Guy knockoff, became what is without a doubt one of my favorite shows out there, showing a harshly realistic view on an average American family in the 70s, particularly with the stigma around masculinity and the effects that can have on one's mental health, especially during a time period where expressing that was extremely taboo. But even further than that, you can tell this was a project incredibly near and dear to Bill Burr, him having a part in much more than just the creation of it, writing many of the best episodes up until the finale, having help from plenty of acclaimed folks along the way, such as writers from The Simpsons Golden Era. Although, spiting all that positivity, however, F is for Family is also one of the ugliest, most unfunny cartoons I think I've ever seen, doing a lot of stuff that I really don't care for and would make me hate any other show for doing the exact same thing. But I think it's certainly a case where I can understand why it's there, and the good definitely outweighs the bad. So without further ado, let's get right into F is for Family season by season, just to truly see what makes it the best, worst adult cartoon ever. F is for Family stars Frank Murphy. On the outside, he's your average man in the 70s, works a pretty standard job at the airport, coming back every night to his stay-at-home wife Sue, eldest teen son Kevin, adolescent Bill, and his youngest kid Maureen. Guess which one is meant to be Bill Burr? The first scene perfectly encapsulates what the whole show is about. It's after work and the family are all sitting at the dinner table.
Bro, this is like a Mexican standoff.
Frank trying to keep up this perfect, happy family image, almost for himself in a way, while the phone keeps ringing over and over again, not letting him be in this perfect world without the constant looming of life and responsibilities keeping him in check. His rage building up more and more to the point where he screams at the kid on the phone and leaves to punch a boxing bag in his garage, yelling at another kid in the process. From just this, you know exactly what kind of guy Frank Murphy is. He's someone who cares deeply about the family he's built, but never truly gets to enjoy that because of the lack of control he really has over his own life. He knows he's a slave to the 9-to-5 system, and there's nothing he can do to get out of it, having given up his own dreams to start a family because that's what he was expected to do as a man. The intro encapsulates this wonderfully, like you know, the actual intro with the theme song and everything, showing a young and optimistic Frank graduating college and soaring high into the sky. But reality sets in. He's drafted, gets his wife pregnant, gets fat and bald, and quickly plummets to the ground where he remains dormant in a chair surrounded by his family. It perfectly shows how fast everything can move and how overwhelming it is having everything pile on at once, him barely being able to get by. It's a great reflection of the series as a whole because, oh boy, is this shit depressing. Each season has the Murphy family members all going through their own little arcs, building around one theme. But the first season goes for something much more broad with all of them, which I think was a smart move on the writer's part. It's not really one of those shows where you can watch one episode and get what exactly it is they're going for. So if you were ever interested in checking it out, I'd recommend watching all of Season 1 before gathering a solid opinion. Helps that by far it's the shortest season at only 6 episodes. But because of this, it gives you the most basic overview of these characters and what you can expect from them. They have a pretty clear trend. Life sucks. Let's start with Maureen because she's without a doubt the least interesting member of the Murphy family and not one I care to focus on too much. She's the youngest in the family and doesn't really go through much development in the first season, and I gotta say she's the only one of them who I actively dislike. Ironically, I talked about it in my previous video, but I've never really been a fan of the bratty little girl stereotype who's just annoying to the other characters, and we're meant to gawk and awe because it's cute or whatever. It's not that bad with her. It's done more realistically than many other examples I could name, but on her own she doesn't really have much going on. She's mainly just used as a foil for other characters, such as Bill, who's much more interesting, thankfully, clearly being the stand-in for a young Bill Burr. Although it's not made too obvious. You know, unlike Big Mouth, it doesn't come off like one big vent piece. They build onto this idea that Bill is kind of a pushover. He gets bullied at school, his only friend is the one neighborhood kid less cool than him, and he's constantly undermined by his father, wanting his respect. The theme with Bill is a loss of innocence, which I always enjoy. But because the entire show doesn't revolve around him, it doesn't lean all that much into it being a coming-of-age story, which I usually love, but here I don't mind. Because each member of the family represents a different age group and therefore all get their own time to shine. Bill is just meant to be their excuse to tell stories with an adolescent boy. There are these great moments I love where Bill's childlike view of the world is broken again and again, followed by prolonged sequences of him looking distraught. Like when he catches his brother jerking off or winds up in his parents' room while they're frickin', even hearing his own dad insult him behind his back. You know what this reminds me of? The scene from Rick and Morty, where Morty has just had his entire perception of the world shaken and now has changed because of that. Although F is for Family does it in a much more natural way. Throughout the series, Bill and Morty go through very similar character shifts, starting as a bit of a pussy and because of events surrounding them become more hard and cynical over time. However, with Bill it's many events piling onto each other and the change isn't immediate. Rick and Morty had the issue where because Morty had this shift so early into the series, we've now been stuck with a version of him so drastically different than his original personality, to the point of feeling like an entirely different character. Not helping is that the show is looking to go on for many, many more years, so the version of him in Season 1 is going to seem so bizarre compared to how he acts for the rest of the series. Okay, that issue is going to be made a lot worse pretty soon. However, with Bill, not only does it work that F is for Family is a limited run, meaning they only had to work with him for 5 seasons and not indefinitely, but as we're going to see, they also do something different with him every time. He's not just cynical and that's that. They use it
trying to figure out what way
that
to win
with Season
this.
1 ending on him pushing his luck and winds up burning down the whole neighborhood forest. There's a payoff that feels natural to what they're building up to. I like Bill a lot, but he's nowhere near my favorite Murphy. Sadly, neither is Kevin, the eldest. Now, I don't not like him, but in Season 1 he really doesn't have that much to do. But as we go on, you'll see they start to focus on him more and more and actually give him stuff to do which improves him a bunch. But here he's just used as a lightning rod for most of Frank's anger, as he's quite literally the exact opposite of what Frank looks for in a son. Being a slacker kid with no real aspirations of him becoming a successful musician. Something Frank deems worthless, so that he's just...
Yeah, Zane.
Sue and Frank are where things start
What
to get
is that?
interesting for me, as they're easily one of the most realistic
Zane?
versions of a married couple I've ever seen in a cartoon. The trope here is not...
Yeah, you can play with me. What's your username?
To enjoy his peace and quiet when he's home from work, but can't due to his righty kids and nagging wife. But right off the bat throughout Season 1, they make it apparent that there is so much more to them than that. Starting with Sue, that is all she's presented as initially. The stay-at-home mom who has a part-time job selling plastic Tupperware, which, like Kevin, is constantly undermined by Frank.
So, while Mommy's busy with her little hobby...
It's a job.
Yes, fine, a job.
Throughout the first episode, it's treated as your fairly standard sitcom setup. But during the second episode, after she's finished all of her wifely duties for the day, you get this. She's miserable. Her life has no real purpose and she's aware of it. She wants to achieve something greater but knows that her responsibilities as a mother don't allow her to do that. She's expected to just be the stay-at-home housewife. The series greatly plays with these tropes. In any other standard adult sitcom, these would be all the characters are. It would be where every source of conflict arises from. But in F is for Family, we see them actively try to change the roles they've been given, Sue eventually getting a full-time job later in the season. The prime example of this, though, can be seen with our protagonist, Frank Murphy. He's deceptively simple at the beginning. You think he's just going to be the angry dad stand-in. Every episode will be about something making him angry, and it'll be funny. But it's not. It's really sad. If there's one thing I can certainly compliment the show on, it's that the arguments are so genuine and real to the point of being uncomfortable at times. Frank and
Damn,
Stu are
dude, this is so
constantly at each
fucking
other's
weird.
throats, screaming at each other, calling each other all the names under the sun. But even then, they tend to end on some kind of positive note. Whether it be them realizing that no matter what, they'll always love each other and will be in each other's corners, or feeling bad for what happened and eventually trying to make it better. It's a depressing series to watch, but that doesn't come from the characters being assholes to each other, like I could say about so many other shows like Family Guy. It's depressing because you can see the actual human struggle in it. All these characters who want different things that clash with each other. And you're seeing them realize just how many hurdles they have to jump through just to be content with their lives. You soon realize that Frank isn't just your stuffy workaholic dad archetype. He's a miserable man who is not happy with his life. Near the end of the season, we get a brief glimpse at something that will be explored in later seasons. Having Frank talk to his son about how when he was younger he was going to be a pilot, even getting accepted into
Bro,
school,
this is so
but had to give
fucked.
up on it upon getting his girlfriend pregnant. It's treated fairly inconsequentially here, but you soon realize that this is where the source of a lot of his anger comes from. Frank dropped
This is just like a
everything
patience
what he
game.
felt he was expected
Whoever
to do,
feels like
marry the girl who got
attacking
pregnant
whoever.
and get a job to support his newfound family, naively thinking he could just put his goals on the back burner to pick them back up at a later point. But that's not how life works. No matter what, there's always something bringing him further and further away from the dream he was so close to achieving. And Frank spends so much time lamenting about that he can't appreciate what's in front of him. There's a great moment in the first season where Frank has to take care of the kids while Sue is like doing her work for the dad, which he clearly cannot handle because to him, Netflix has been in a lot of hot water over the past year, from putting a stop to past.
You're kind of the home of, I think, whatever you...
From Saudi Arabia is home to some of the strictest laws of any country on earth.
Elon Musk has done it again. Just in the last 23 years, he's made electric cars really happen. He founded PayPal. He launched a rocket that's 700 times cheaper than NASA's. But in this building behind me, he's done something that's bigger than all those undertakings combined. Trust me, that's not a statement I make lightly. But when I show you the force Elon has unleashed in this building behind me, a force expected to be worth $15.7 trillion, you'll understand why Bill Gates is comparing it to the personal computer, the internet, and mobile phones. Forbes says it is set to unleash the greatest profit engine in history. And Google's CEO says what's behind this project is more profound than fire or electricity. My guess is you're thinking there's no way something like that is unfolding right now. No way that it's moving with unbelievable speed, as the website Digital Trends is now saying. But today, I want to pull back the curtain for you and shed light on this $15.7 trillion force. I'll show you why it's poised to mint new millionaires, even as Goldman Sachs predicts that it could cause 300 million jobs to disappear. And most importantly, I'll show you how you can be on the winning side of this revolution. Hi, I'm Eric Fry. I spent the last 30 years working in Silicon Valley and Wall Street as a broker, entrepreneur, analyst, and hedge fund manager. So this is not the first time I'm going public with a warning. For example, back in the year 2000, I warned everyone that the dot-com bubble was about to burst. Those who listened to me avoided the bloodbath when the NASDAQ plunged 75%. I made a similar call in 2005 when I noticed another bubble, this time in the housing market. I even went on CNBC to get the information out to as many investors as possible. And by doing so, I saved thousands of Americans from financial ruin when the housing market completely collapsed 2 years later. More recently, in 2021, I predicted the crash in tech stocks and advised my readers to jump out of the infamous ARK Innovation ETF. Soon after that, tech stocks crashed and that ETF dropped about 70%. In all, I have helped to alert investors ahead of crashes for 73 different stocks. Now, I'm telling you all this because I want you to take my warnings seriously. This time, I'm not just dealing with another bubble or a potential stock market crash.
Fucking A.
If you want to see somebody that actually knows how to pick up women and understands the game really well, I'll recommend one is that dating video series, or the pickup series by Tristan Tate. And the second one, I don't know if I mentioned this before, I think I did. The second one, surprisingly, holy shit, and it's so funny watching all the dumb red pill shit run up to some of the actions they're doing. Watch Sneeko talk to Zerka. Perfect example of Zerka's Riz in action.
Sit here.
Sorry, this is disgusting. If this is what Riz or a game looks like, I would never want my daughter to talk to any guy out of fear that she would have an interaction like this. It is absolutely of Zerka to do any of the shit he's doing now. I don't think anything Zerka's done has even come close to the threshold of being raped. How do I give off non-friend zone vibes? Is it literally just proper flirting? I don't know. I wish I could help you. I'm not sure. It's called being attractive. Being attractive has almost nothing to do with it. But I think attractive people... you know what it might be? I'm just spitballing here, meaning I haven't thought about this, evaluated this, critically analyzed it. It might literally just come down to... do you know how Myron or Red Pill people talk about something called... do they call it abundance theory or whatever? I don't know if Rolo coined this. Where, like, you treat women like you have, like, an abundance of women available to you.
Yeah.
I think that I think it might actually just come down to confidence. And if you come off as a very confident person, it's funny because I figured this out when I was 17, I think. I don't know how. There's one belief that's never changed for mine. I feel like self-confidence or self-esteem is the most important trait that you can have. It literally bleeds over into every single thing, every single aspect of your life. And I think when you're talking to somebody, I think if you are confident and you carry that confidence with you, I think that's very attractive. I think if you lack confidence or if you're meek, I think that can get you like friend zoned. I don't like using the term friend zone like this. You guys don't use friend zone correctly anymore. I think that can get you like in a friendly place real quick. That'd be my guess. That dumb Alex playing with Fire Guy is a good.
I always say stop doing steady state cardio if you're trying to lose weight.
He's taking me out first.
So you probably have come across this guy before. He's always saying to stop doing cardio.
Cardio burns fat, right? No.
Supposedly he's a celebrity trainer. I met him yesterday at the conference, so I asked him, how are you so shredded?
The best way to burn fat and get shredded is not keto, paleo, fasting, and it's definitely not super intense exercises.
What he says makes sense.
The science of weight loss was cracked a long time ago. It's not a trend, it's just facts. Following all those trending fad diets and all those workouts you see online is literally just a waste of time.
Steady state cardio actually releases what's known as cortisol. Cortisol is your body's stress hormone. Cortisol actually promotes fat storage. So if you don't like doing steady state cardio, you need to stop doing it because it's not a quality way of losing weight long term, and that is basically a recipe for disaster.
I'm a huge donut guy. If you don't think that I ever eat these foods when I'm following a diet, you're wrong, because I am eating them and I'm in the best shape of my life right now.
Once you know what your body type is, the road to weight loss is so much easier because it fits your metabolic needs and it doesn't feel like your body is constantly fighting against you.
By the time I hit the 90 days, my jeans were falling off of it.
I don't even weigh 210 pounds. You've lost me. That's insane. So you've lost
53 pounds. I went from 189 to 136 pounds.
Dang. This is our body type
Yes.
quiz. It's a free quiz, 6 really easy questions, and it takes literally like 20 seconds. It tells you what your body type is, but then it also tells you the 3 most important things to do based on what your body type is, and it's completely free. So if anybody out there wants to check it out, click the link below, and it'll tell you how to get in shape.
I like to tell this story a lot because it just goes to show how easy this can be. I was walking into Starbucks. Some guy comes up and goes, "How do you have such a good body? How are you in such good shape?" And instead of sitting there for 30 minutes and talking to him about the 3 different body types, I sent him to my free body type quiz that tells you the 3 most important things to do to get in shape for whatever your body type is. You can hit the link below, take the quiz. Won't ask for your email or anything like that. Click the link below this video, take my free body type quiz, and get your personalized plan right now.
Getting crisis ready means you need expensive storage equipment, right? Wrong! Forget about unreliable and expensive modern survival equipment. Take a look at what the pioneers did for centuries and don't be the last generation to know.
Explanation, he puts it down to some kind of ability to indirectly create sexual tension when joking. I've heard him say that, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I think that's already if you've got like a confident demeanor. If you're like kind of a meek dude and you start making those jokes, I think it's going to come off as really creepy. It's like, yeah, it just comes off as really creepy. I feel like there's a lot of meat on the bone for discussion in venting, which we don't do, and another one for flirting,
I wonder
and
what
social
the
understanding and application of yourself in those social settings.
What the ranks
You're like
were.
a natural, so it's hard to
Beginner,
teach for you, but there's certainly discussion to be had around it. Yeah, there's definitely discussion to be had around it. When you say like you're a natural, I think that the way that I learn it is the same way that like you ever meet people in high school. I brought this example up. You ever meet people in high school and like, God, you're so good at drawing. Like, you know, have you ever taken a class? Or like, no, I guess I'm just like a natural. Those people that are naturals at drawing probably picked up.
All right, peace.